Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Thursday night. It is time for Revolutionary Change. I'm Jen Perelman.
I'm Peter Hager, and I think we're in a very organized situation this evening. Hopefully,
I hope so. I hope so for your sake.
for my sake. What about your
For
sake?
your sake.
Yeah, it's always my sake. Smash that like button, share, and subscribe. And guys, I'm going to emphasize this right off the bat. So for those of you who saw one of our very strong clips the other day regarding LeBron James, Spike Lee, and Kyrie Irving, like many instances where we do something that attracts attention to our channel that does not put Israel in a very positive light, we are now suffering through our second straight day of massive shadow banning suppression on our channel. So what I highly emphasize to each and every one of you who supports us and appreciates the work that we do, always make sure that if a clip drops, watch it for a few minutes, like it, comment on it if you can. It's the only way we can try and beat the algorithm. It is deliberately shadow banned, and there are numerous instances where people will say that, look, I do everything I can to be made aware, whether it's liking, commenting, subscribing, hitting the bell, et cetera, and still not getting reminders and whatnot. So it is something that we have to deal with on a regular basis. So if there's anything that you could do to help us, algorithm, that's good, Henry. I can appreciate that one. So if we want to beat the Excelsior algorithm, then that's what we have to do. So that's my public service announcement to get us off on the right foot this evening. And how are you?
I am good. But did you happen to ask everybody if they didn't to hit the like button and subscribe if they're not subscribed, and subscribe over on Rumble, because this could get shut down at any moment. And also, I want to encourage people to check out our Patreon. And this is why, yes, it's for people who are paid also, but you can join for free over there. And I want to start using that page as a continuation of this community. And that's something I'm working on. So by all means, go over to Patreon, join. I want to, Rachel and I are talking about setting up some of the chats over there. So like we can in here maintain this conversation, even when we're not live. So yeah. And you can, and that's free. So that's another way you can support us without the Google algorithm interfering.
That sounds like a reasonable ask. And
yeah, we're going to start trying to do stuff over there. I mean, I haven't been, but I think it'll be a good place for like a community board, like bulletin board, not like board of directors.
Well, I think we're also going to try our hand potentially at Substack and see where that goes, because basically if I do, like a post on YouTube, like once every other day, once every few days, the one that I did today about Tucker Carlson is fairly lengthy, and I think it's probably lengthy enough where it would warrant a Substack post. And then what we could also do is drop a video clip there. And my understanding is that also helps, break through the algorithm to some degree. So
when you're writing lengthy posts like that, you might as well put them in the Substack.
Yeah, no, look, we got a lot to cover tonight, and obviously we're going to do our best to stay on track. We know we got a lot of big stories that are coming out right now, not the least of which is they really seem to think that we're going to be okay, going to war with Iran, World War III, if you will, on behalf of Israel, of course. I'm not, but it's going to require conscription. Let me tell you something. If this really goes down, if this goes down, you will have a draft, and then you'll have a revolution. So let's have it. I just say, keep
even without conscription, and even without them having a draft, like in terms of army, land forces, or whatever, just in terms of what we can do with bombing and drones and unmanned stuff, those types of things. Mm-hmm. That is what I think is what they're planning. I don't think that they are intending on a ground game, but I don't think they realize that Iran isn't playing around. They're not playing around. They're sick of our crap. They've already said that last time was just, was a nice sort of, they hit us with kid gloves last time. They're not going to do that this time. They're not going to do that this time. And there are so many logistical problems militarily with this operation. I am not the person to explain it, but just from watching people like Larry Wilkerson and Larry Johnson and everybody who, Scott Ritter, like people who know a lot about how things work. There's no universe wherein that is going to work to achieve any end in terms of the disposition of the state of Iran. Nothing we do is going to do that. All it's going to do is we'll hurt people, we'll kill people. They'll kill a whole bunch of our people in a way that I don't think people understand. And then I think they're going to level Israel. So I've been saying for a while, I am on the, I'm sort of anticipating a little bit, excited about what happens if we poke at them again. Because I think we need to have our asses handed to us.
Well, you know what? Why don't we do a quick switcheroo? Obviously, we're going to get to Prince Andrew, but because we're already into this, I think we should talk about this whole board of peace and what this bullshit means. Because, again, the concept, and Colin, I don't know if you have that image of the board of peace, which now includes the very peaceful state of Israel.
Well, that was my thing, and I had sent Colin something about board of peace.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure which story you're wanting to address.
Well, I think this is a great place to start then, because this is Trump's supposed peace speech, again, board of peace, that apparently went down just a little while ago. Again, the war games are not a game. That's the thing that people need to understand. I have a feeling, as you probably do as well, that Iran is at the point where they're looking for a reason.
I think they're just so fed up that they're not going to take it anymore, but they would rather not be dealing with this.
Can I also say
they also know, oh, that's correct. Ramadan Kareem for my friends out there that are celebrating. I'm glad. Hopefully you're somewhere where you're able to eat at this point in the day. Hopefully you're somewhere where you are sundown. Shame on me.
Can we just address one thing before we bring up the Trump clip? Can we address the fact that these Zio scum motherfuckers are the worst people alive? Because do you really think it's coincidental that they're doing this right now during Ramadan? Of course they're doing it right now. Because
they do every Ramadan. Seriously, if you go back and look, so many of these things purposefully take place during Ramadan. Mm-hmm. This isn't the first time that they've done that.
Well, listen, I have some really important things to say, so let's hear what I have to say now.
I want to let you know that the United States is going to make a contribution of $10 billion to the Board of Peace.
With a B.
Thank you. And we've had great support for that number. And that number is a very small number when you look at that compared to the cost of war. That's 2 weeks of fighting.
Everything is transactional to this asshole. Everything is transactional. Everything is a business thing. And he's not even good at business. But, and just as a point of reference, whenever people, and there are a lot of people over the years who always thought that what we need is a president who runs a good business, someone who knows how to run a business. No, that's not what we need. The government is not a business. It's not a for-profit situation. It's not there for that. So, but no, this guy just really thinks that this is just like another deal.
Yeah, well, that's how he's looked at his entire life. Everything is about a proposition. Remember, he only ended up running for president because he saw an opportunity. He had been flirting with the prospect of running for president since 1988. It's not like this guy hadn't had an idea in his head that eventually he would go for something of this magnitude, but he saw an opening, he took it, and the country is in almost, shambles at this point. And now they've got this job report that just came out today suggesting that things are not so bad. Again, what are you measuring the jobs in? Are you measuring jobs in, let's say, the tech sector, which is directly correlated to the military-industrial complex? If that's what you're measuring it against, then yes, things are going just fine. But to the country at large, no, it's not. And when he's the $10 billion, we're giving $10 billion to the Board of Peace. Let me ask you this. Why would the Board of Peace, which is a government program, fiscal conservatives calling you out. What is the point of this? Why does the Board of Peace need $10 billion? You know,
you understand that this is that they're just stealing this money, right?
Sure, of course.
Okay. So, right. So all of this that is supposedly going to rebuild Gaza, right? That's never going to happen. Like I've said, that's not going to happen. So then the question is, well, where does the money go? Right. So, and keep in mind, we'll talk about the type of which nations are actually participating. It's just ones that we basically have their arms twisted behind their back and are asked, we're the bully of the lunch. We're demanding people's lunch money.
Yeah.
Give me all
So
your money.
that we give them. Right. So, yeah.
It's a very small number. It sounds like a lot, but it's a very small number. So we're committed to $10 billion. Together we can achieve the dream of bringing lasting harmony to a region tortured by centuries of war.
And the successful implementation of the second phase of the Gaza peace plan.
There he is.
This includes ensuring a lasting ceasefire.
Look at him. The irony of how much he made fun of Sleepy Joe. The irony of how much he did. He has fallen asleep way more than Joe Biden ever fell asleep.
Well, hold on a minute. I would not go there. What I would say is that he's a hypocrite, which of course he is. But in terms of whether or not he has more sleeping tendencies in press conferences,
I've seen more clips of him sleeping. I have not seen clips of Joe Biden sleeping in the Oval Office surrounded by people talking.
Well, that's also because you rarely ever saw him being videoed,
No,
video.
there is that. There is that.
So-
So they were smart enough to keep him off camera during
Yeah,
those.
whereas I don't think people really this is the thing. So many of the people that Trump has brought in, particularly in this particular administration,
Go away.
are people that are not going to be in government after this administration is out. The people that typically show up in government in administrations like Joe Biden, those are political lifers. Those are people that are on Capitol Hill their entire life. So they're going to do everything in their capacity to make sure that the president is seen in the most positive light possible. Whereas with Trump, they don't care. They're just in it for the payday. And in many instances, they're going to get paid very well. Now, how they're going to sell it going forward, Jen is...
Okay, Cosmic Crust. Now,
you're a lib?
Yeah, too liberal for you. I guess I'm not sure what that means, but the thing is, for you to what? You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't asking you over, I wasn't asking you out. Like, I'm too liberal for you. We're not like, we don't need to be courting. So you could just sit and.
Or you could ask him, what is it that is so liberal about you that he doesn't
Well,
like?
I just think it's funny. Also, that, and I'm not going to, it's hard for me as an editor not to point out that you mean TOO and not TO liberal. But,
well, there's a lot of, look, I have sympathy for anybody who had to go through the public school system in the United States, especially in the last 30 years. It is what it is. Look, when it comes to politics, you should judge people based on individual. Jeez Louise. What do you know, Travers?
Thank you, Travers. Travers is defending my honor.
Well, the next idea, 1789, he gets it. Liberal or revolutionary?
Well, here's the thing. So to people that are on the right, they see me as liberal, but they think that the Democrats are liberal. Like, they think we're all the same. They don't really have a distinguish, but
I keep insisting that there has to be a distinction with a difference when you're talking about different segments of a given political ideology. Now, if you want to say when it comes to woke politics, and yes, I use the word woke because the intention behind woke politics is not to actually create sustainable change for people that desperately need it. It's about virtue signaling. It's about not actually creating economic, financial, social, legitimate infrastructure that people actually need. So, for example, as I always like to point out, especially when it comes to the trans issue, we have a friend who was a very integral part of Jen's 2 congressional runs. And this person has made it abundantly clear that she absolutely despises the woke trans movement because all that does is hurt people like that person. And again, I'm not going to say who it is. I'm just going to tell you on good authority that this is somebody who's been transferred, what, 20 years? So this, you know, there has to be a distinctional difference when it comes to.
Her whole adult life for the most part.
And when you use people as political props, when you use children, for example, as props, which a lot of people, especially celebrities, have done, we see what that does. We see how, you know, the education system is just completely lopsided and broken. And so as a result, all things are upside down and inside out. And the one thing that we've learned, and yeah, well, there you go, you know, friend of the show, and also dealing with a similar problem. And this is the whole thing.
Thank you for sharing.
This is the whole thing about when, you know, again, this is sort of like a universal identification on this channel where pretty much everybody agrees with this.
Because we're about actually doing things, not just rhetoric. And the reason that there is all that overwoke rhetoric is because really both sides use it against the other, and it doesn't benefit the trans community. Nothing that, I assure you, that nothing that the Democrats are fighting for is something that's going to really benefit that community. They just play the resistance to the mean Republicans that just hate the LGBTQIAs.
Let me tell you something. Friend of the show, James Lee, set off a firestorm the other day because he did something that I absolutely appreciate that he did. And I'm going to address it on Saturday. He went after Aaron Parnas, and he ended up catching a lot of flack because there are people saying, I love Aaron. I think he's great. I think he does this, that, and the other thing. And I keep thinking to myself, do these people not understand what an absolute scumbag Zionazi this guy is? Like, do they not know this? But because he's part of the shit lib crowd and they like the virtue signaling things that he does. By the way, they don't even know who the hell his father is, and the fact that his father was in Trump's inner circle for a very long time. This is the type of stuff where we are not, and maybe this is, again, this may be to the detriment of our channel and why we're not, you know, pulling 3,000 live viewers at a time. We're not into the clickbaity type politics. Anytime we address somebody, we have people like Travers who are our people.
We're talking about Transformers.
Yeah.
All right. So can we sort of stay on task? But I do want to say that one thing that was very hard for me with my son, with Reese, when he was in college, is he's very much like me. He's no nonsense. He's very practical. He's very utilitarian, and he doesn't like bullshit. And so he hated, and he went to a very liberal, he went to Ithaca. So, I mean, he went
where
to
everybody was, all the rich kids were all up in their feelings 24/7.
It's that, and a lot of like the blue hair and a lot of that stuff. And so he got so like agitated and hateful about the LGBTQIA, the groups, because they were just so in your face. And it took me every year. I'm like, please understand that the majority of gay people, the majority of trans people are just living their lives. They are not, right. It's not like that, right? They're not like that. And so but it's true. Like, do you remember the man we met in Cooper City that time? That came up to us with his wife and his kid.
Yeah.
These are people that they live among us. The trans people live among us. They've been among us forever. And most people just live their lives and try to just be with their family and do their thing, right?
Just remember, anything, and I mean anything, not to talk about things like this. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor released under investigation. Mountbatten Windsor released under investigation after arrest. Andrew pictured on Thursday evening as police say searches in Norfolk have ended.
So wait, we need to go to the top section of this because it's been updating. You see what I'm saying? So like if you go to, it's just here from 5 hours ago. So we can just read the section because this will go all the way back.
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, released from police station, has been seen leaving a police station in a car after almost 12 hours of questioning by police in Norfolk. He was photographed in the back seat leaving Asylum Police Station on Thursday evening. Andrew was arrested this morning on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Police have not given any further information at this point. Suspicion of misconduct. That's what they're calling it.
But he's okay. But this is from The Guardian, so I felt like it was appropriate to use The Guardian for this story because that's basically like their main thing. But go down past the pictures. Here it is. Here it is.
So this section
Okay.
right here.
Andrew Mountbatten Whistler was arrested on Thursday morning on suspicion of misconduct in public office by police investigating the former prince's dealings with the convicted child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Police had been assessing allegations that Mountbatten Windsor shared sensitive information with Epstein when he was a UK trade envoy. He was released under investigation on Thursday evening, and Thames Valley Police said searches in Norfolk had concluded. King Charles expressed his deepest concern over the arrest of his younger brother, but said the law must take its course, and police had his full and wholehearted support and cooperation. Virginia Giuffre's family said in a statement that Andrew's arrest showed no one is above the law. You know, I'm glad for them that they feel some sense of justice from that. I do. I mean, I don't think it's enough, like anywhere near what is needed in that, but I'm glad about that. Maria Farmer, the first known survivor to report Epstein and Maxwell to law enforcement, issued this statement. Today is just the beginning of accountability and justice brought forth by Virginia Roberts Giuffre, a young mother who adored her daughter deeply. She fought the most powerful on earth to protect her. She did this for everyone's daughters. Let's now demand all the dominoes of power and corruption begin to fall. Donald Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One that Andrew's arrest was a shame and a very sad thing. He said, I think it's very sad. I think you want to do it. Okay. Right. Peter's got to do it. Okay.
I think it's very sad. I think it's so bad for the royal family. It's very, very sad. To me, it's a very sad thing. Trump said King Charles, who is obviously coming to our country very soon, was a fantastic man. Trump went on to say, it's really interesting because nobody used to speak about Epstein when he was alive, but now they speak. But I'm the one that can talk about it because I have been totally exonerated. I did nothing.
The National Police.
You know what? You know what's so funny? And again, this is the thing about human psychology. He's telling on himself. He doesn't. He subconsciously doesn't realize that when he says this, he's admitting guilt. Like,
well, just like Milikowski being the first person to respond to everything. It's not us. We didn't have anything to do with it.
Before Charlie Kirk's body even attempted to get gold, may his memory be a blessing.
Well, I totally didn't do anything wrong, and you could stop accusing me. I know a lot of other people who did a lot of bad things. So compared to me, I am totally innocent.
Listen, let me finish. The National Police Chiefs Council said that the Home Office was alerted by Thames Valley Police 30 minutes before they made the arrest. It is understood neither the King nor Buckingham Palace was informed in advance of the arrest. The Thames Valley Police issued a statement. On Thursday, we arrested a man in his 60s from Norfolk on suspicion of misconduct in public office. The CPS and their lawyers have spoken to detectives from Thames Valley Police investigating the King's brother, but are yet to give formal early investigative advice. Okay. I think that's good. I think that's a good update where we are. That's what is the most recent thing. And yes, it is the first of hopefully many more to come, powerful, corrupt, filthy pieces of shit that are going to be caught up in this web. That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that this is, and here's the thing. It's not going to happen in this country. Not at first, because we are completely lawless. We have no respect for law. We have no respect for human rights. We are just like a rogue nation. But there are certain nations like the UK that still pride themselves on a certain amount of decorum. And they are going to actually prosecute some of these people.
Yeah.
So people that have citizenship in other places are going to be held accountable, even if they're not held accountable here. So I find this very satisfying. I think he is a disgusting pig. I also would like to point out that he was not welcomed very warmly into his new neighborhood.
No.
Because no, he is not welcome. He is living, I forget the name of which house, which of the royal properties he's living in, but he moved into an area or came back to an area, and there were flyers all over, basically with very not nice things to say about him all over the neighborhood. So they are not happy that he's there. So he's getting what he has coming. He'll end up having to be living on some island somewhere, maybe on the island that the royal family owns, somewhere near Epstein Island. But
you bring up a good point, because this is one of the distinct differences between living in the States versus living in other places like the UK. Most people are not absurdly ostentatious when it comes to their living quarters like they are here in the United States. Take the most guilty party of them all right now, Les Wexner. He lives on a compound in Columbus, Ohio. Do you know how impossible it is to even get near that compound? So at the end of the day, he is, Prince, or Andrew, no longer Prince, but, well, there's only one Prince anyway, and he's long gone. But point being is that he is not going to be able to live in a society where people are not, let's just say, distant from one another in terms of how they live. Where in the United States, if you want to go incognito, you want to go into hiding, you have you have a getaway home in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. People have the ability to do that if they're rich and powerful, and you better believe they're doing that. He can't,
at least not pending a trial. Now, once he's tried, if he is not convicted or if he serves or whatever, he will have to be living somewhere else, because he will be a pariah there. They won't tolerate that. And I'm hopeful that other countries and other places that have a better sense of laws, morals, and values than we do will treat these people accordingly. That's what I'm hopeful for. Like I'm hopeful.
Well, as friend of the show, Cherry Cupcake, good to see you. Don't get too excited, Jen. I live in the UK.
Oh, I don't think he's necessarily going to jail, but he's going to live his life as a pariah. He's going to be stuck there as a pariah until there's any sort of judicial, outcome. And then he'll either still be there as a pariah or he'll go flee to an island. The sacrificial, maybe
it is. But here's the thing. This is an inflection point for humanity right now. People are not going to be satisfied. As far as they're concerned, somebody like Prince Andrew, most people don't give a shit. He is such low-hanging fruit on the totem pole in terms of people that were actually vicious. Let me tell you something. When they go after Barack, that's when you're going to find out just how far this is willing to go and how far people are willing to take it. Because you start going after somebody like Barack, some people might end up, in an oil drum, if you catch my
You mean like Virginia Giuffre?
Correct.
Because he was specifically named by her. Ehud Barak was specifically named by her.
Mm-hmm. And once you cross that path, once you cross over into that world of identifying Israel as the culprit, as the enemy, much like what's going on right now in West Asia, as Jen is insisting I refer to it as.
Yes.
Then you realize why this next is as significant as anything that we are dealing with right now. When you're talking about getting arrested, when you talk about what a country is willing to do to cause an international incident, let's start off by just getting this out of the way. I don't care what you think of Tucker Carlson.
Wait. You're going into, but the whole thing about, we need to talk, where are we going to talk about the current, post ceasefire stats and stuff that I had sent? That was something I had sent to go with Board of Peace story, and I had told you that was goes with that. Okay.
I did. My apologies. Let's grab that quick. So, Colin, do you have that that we could pull up?
It was just like the current stats from, I want to say it might be Al Jazeera. Yeah, there it is. Is that it?
Let's see.
All right. No,
No, that's Cuba.
here we go.
This
This is it. Yeah. This is it. So this is a report. Is it a UN report? Who did this? It's a, UN Human Rights Office report released today. Yeah, United Nations. Okay. So this is today. This is current. And this is, we get sidetracked here, but, Trump's having a board of peace to raise money to rebuild something that he supposedly already instituted a ceasefire. And I just want everybody to know what the stats are since that quote unquote ceasefire, because they're having a board of peace, but yet there still isn't even a ceasefire. So we need to,
I know you've always had respect for the Queen, and this is something I was not aware of. So apparently Queen Elizabeth never visited Israel. Okay, that's great.
I did have a certain amount of respect for her and her life and what she dealt with. But then I also understand that as a revolutionary person, that they are part of the oppressive state. So like, I get that. But we're going to I just want to give people the stats. So a UN Human Rights Office report released today raises concerns over ethnic cleansing by Israeli authorities in both Gaza and the West Bank amid increased attacks and forcible transfers that appear aimed at a permanent displacement of Palestinians throughout the occupied territories. During the reporting period, so guys, this is from 1st of November to October 2025. Intensified attacks, the methodical destruction of entire neighborhoods, and the denial of humanitarian assistance appear to aim at a permanent demographic shift in Gaza, says the report. This, together with forcible transfers. If you scrolled up, Colin, are you able to click on the report where it says report? Like, what happens if you click on that? Aha, yeah. Is this, let's see what this is, the summary. This is what I'm kind of looking for. Is it talk? Scroll, let's see. I want to know what our numbers are here. No, that's not it. All right. Go back. I'll just see what the story about the report is. I thought maybe we could actually just sort of, here it is.
This is it.
This is it. Okay, so you need to read some of that because I can't stick my face in close enough.
So overall Palestinian I can. Overall Palestinian fatalities and injuries accounted for at least 68,858 Palestinians were killed in Gaza. Over 170,664 people were injured. Again, these numbers are drastically below.
These aren't even the numbers that I was even wanting to talk about. I just want to know the number since the ceasefire, which is what I thought because that's the key number here. These numbers are absurd. Okay. There's got to be there's 750,000 to 1 million people
you
dead.
can't do a segment like this by just throwing this stuff together. This needed to be,
No. I thought this was the report and I had seen a summary, but for some reason, when I sent it, the link, it didn't come through on that thing. Yeah. This is what
the Lancet, it seems to be the only publication which has an impeccable reputation the world over, which has said repeatedly that the amount of deaths in Gaza at this point is probably in excess of 750,000 people, and how this just gets so distorted. There is some acknowledgement, from some people who say that at least a few 100,000 have been killed.
Colin, scroll down. Maybe I saw something on because there was something that I saw that I sent him a link to that had like the number. Wait, here it is. Okay, here it is. It details the deaths. This is since the ceasefire. 463 Palestinians, including 157 children. That's since the ceasefire. Mm-hmm. So that's the segment I was looking for. And in the occupied West Bank, they're just now have declared themselves owners. So now it isn't even a matter of we're doing it illegally. Now they're just declaring it okay.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, we're good. I think that, you can't have somebody talking about a board of peace that hasn't achieved a ceasefire.
Well,
think
the name
that's
of it says it all. Bored of peace, meaning really we're bored of peace, because peace is not profitable. War is profitable. But there are some people that are willing to stand on principle, even if they know they're putting themselves in harm's way. And that's why the story with Tucker Carlson is so important, because this is a person who truly is a traitor to his class. He could easily just sit on the sidelines and not involve himself in any way regarding what's going on right now. And so instead, he conducts an interview with Mike I Heart Israel Huckabee and ends up getting himself detained at the Ben Gurion airport in Tel Aviv. Tucker Carlson detained in Israel, journalists dragged into interrogation room as explosive interview sparks diplomatic firestorm. And we all know who the real president is. Conservative podcasting titan Tucker Carlson said he and his staff were detained in Israel on Wednesday following an interview with Trump's ambassador to the country. The former Fox News host flew into Tel Aviv for a sit-down with Mike Huckabee, who challenged Carlson to speak to him directly following an online spat about the country's treatment of Christians. Yeah, they're treated terribly. Carlson, who also frequently criticizes Israel for its military actions in Gaza, took Huckabee up on his offer. But as critics and pro-Israel activists began piling on Carlson for purportedly not leaving the airport during his brief visit, he revealed that he was met with hostility in the Middle Eastern, West Asia country. Carlson exclusively told the Daily Mail. So he didn't even go to the States with this. He just went to the Daily Mail and said that shortly after the interview, Israeli officials confiscated his passport and hauled one of his colleagues off to an interrogation room. Men who identified themselves as airport security took our passports, hauled our executive producer into a side room, and then demanded to know what we spoke to Ambassador Huckabee about. It was bizarre. We're now out of the country. Prior to the interview, Carlson posted a photo on X of himself and his business partner, Neil Patel, in front of Ben Gurion Airport on Wednesday with the caption, "Greetings from Israel." Now, I'm not sure, Colin, what that clip is, if you want to scroll up for a minute.
Wait, so he was detained on his way there or on his way back?
No, he was detained there while the interview took place. So this is, yeah.
What do you mean while the interview took place, he was detained?
No, after the interview concluded, they arrested him.
Okay.
He did. You know what? He was probably smart. He specifically, and you know what the argument has been from all of these PSYO scumbags? They don't like the fact that he just came directly to the airport to conduct the interview and didn't actually go into Tel Aviv and Jerusalem to see the sites. Why? Were you planning on doing something to Carlson if he managed to get out there in public? Were you?
So I don't understand what were the charges, or why did they detain him?
Because I wanted to fuck with him. That was the whole purpose. You could play this clip real quick, Colin.
Okay.
All right, I think we got to pull it up as like a regular.
Okay,
clip.
yeah.
That's what he's doing. So but again, this is an example of, this is why people don't speak up, because the intimidation factor is very real and it can also get very violent. And so as a result, there's a reason why people don't necessarily want to take chances when it comes to challenging power. That's why so many
How do you have a rational conversation about what's best for your country without becoming hateful yourself or inspiring hate in other people? We've really thought a lot about this. Don't become what they call you. That's our number one imperative, at least on this show. They call you a hater. Don't become one. So we're trying. So we're doing a couple things. The first is we're flying to Jerusalem to interview Mike Huckabee. Mike Huckabee is, of course, the American ambassador to Israel. Someone I've known for over 30 years and always liked, and also a Baptist preacher of some kind, but certainly a prominent Baptist religious figure, also U.S. ambassador, and someone who has views that I just don't agree with at all on questions of American foreign policy and also on questions of theology. He's a famous Christian Zionist, and a famous proponent of neocon foreign policy. I disagree with both. However, it seems like of all the people you could talk to, maybe Mike Huckabee is a guy you could talk to in a reasonable way, in a calm way, without shouting or hatred. We're flying to
So
Jerusalem.
wait, did he go there to talk to him like Christian to Christian? Was that what his intent was? Like, I'm gonna try to reason. I'm gonna, as a Christian, try to reason with this Christian person.
How do you reason with somebody who preaches, what is it? Is it not Simon? Judea and Samaria. Like, he preaches that stuff.
Right. Yeah. So are we going to see any part of that interview, or are we just watching?
Well, the interview hasn't dropped yet. I mean, he just got arrested.
Right. How long is this clip?
This is done. So
Okay.
is that it, Colin?
I think there's more.
No, that was it.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
So if we can go back to the article real quick.
So he was detained just to screw with him, like they do with everybody, like from Max Blumenthal to whoever else comes traveling. Like they're screwing with everybody who's speaking out against the Zionist state. So okay, I get it. They messed with him. They've messed with a lot of content creators. They've messed with the doctors and lawyers that are Palestinian and serving in some way in some capacity.
Let's also keep in mind how absolutely sadistic these people truly are. Too bad Tucker stayed at the airport in the face of so many invitations to see so many wonderful places. A huge and obviously intentional missed opportunity taunted David Friedman, the former U.S. ambassador to Israel during Trump's first term. Two sources familiar with the matter, however, told the Daily Mail that the Israeli government initially did not want to allow Carlson into the country, prompting a delicate negotiation involving the State Department. In the end, the Israeli government decided not to bar Carlson from entering the country in order to avoid a diplomatic incident. No, you did have a diplomatic incident. You decided to arrest his ass. A spokesman for the U.S. Embassy in Israel denied that Carlson was detained. You see, this is the other thing about the Hasbara now. Now they're saying one of two things. Either he was not arrested, or this is standard operating procedure for everybody who comes into Israel. That this is what we do. We put you in a room and we interrogate you. And we
right. This is their stand. Right. They didn't do it specifically to Tucker Carlson. This is just their standard protocol.
Sure.
Right.
So a spokesperson for the U.S. Embassy in Israel denied that Carlson was detained and claimed he received the same passport control questions that countless visitors to Israel, including Ambassador Huckabee and other diplomats, receive as part of normal entrance and exit from Israel. I would bet my life on that they're lying. They're lying. Not a chance. Now, do I think that people go through screening processes and whatnot when they go there? Sure. Does everybody get hauled into interrogation rooms to question their motives as to why they're in their country? No, because that's what customs is for. And that's the thing that you have to go through in order to be admitted into a country. And that's what's done in the country that you come from. When you leave, you go through it on their end, not when you're entering. You see, this is a little thing you learn about international travel that I learned when I recently went to Ireland. So what they're saying is a bold-faced lie, period. It is not accurate that Israel only was going to let Tucker into the country for the interview. The only engagement the embassy had with Israel about his visit was to coordinate his private plane landing as part of facilitating a seamless visit. It was Tucker who chose to only come into the country for a few hours and depart. And Tucker received the same positive treatment of any visitors to Israel. Carlson accused Huckabee last week on his YouTube show of not ensuring proper protections for Christians in Israel. Huckabee, who has known Carlson for more than 3 decades and previously worked with him at Fox News, responded by inviting him to Israel for a discussion. Israel's popularity remains at an all-time low. Oh, hallelujah.
You skipped that first. You skipped that in between that.
Well, I could.
I just think that's kind of,
instead of talking about me, why don't you come talk to me? Carlson replied by welcoming the invitation before noting that they were working on setting up the interview. Yeah, well, it's true. Israel's popularity remains at an all-time low in the GOP among young Republican voters and Trump supporters. The Carlson Huckabee event was reported reportedly an attempt by the Trump administration to prevent debates surrounding Israel from breaking from GOP's conservative coalition ahead of the midterms. Well, I got to tell you, this is not going to do the GOP any favors. In fact, this is going to make things exceptionally worse. And I'll pull this up one more time. If you just want to show that photograph, Colin. This is a photo of Trump and his producer. Notice the
I
difference.
mean, Tucker Carlson and his producer. You said Trump.
Yes. Well, notice anything different between the two men versus one who got dragged into one room versus the other room? I'm just pointing that out. And you can scroll down. I think there may be a little bit more to cover. Trump urged Carlson and others within the GOP to ease off internal fights with Republicans over Israel. Yeah, that's not happening. Everyone's looking for a way to turn down the temperature. President Trump is telling everyone, including Tucker, let's take this down. Yeah, Tucker Carlson does not answer to Donald Trump. Carlson is a longtime ally of Vice President J.D. Vance and speaks with Trump on a range of issues, including foreign policy. Last month, Carlson visited the White House twice and met with Trump in the Oval Office on at least one occasion. Now, again, all of this is well and good, but the issue of Israel is not changing at all, no matter how much you plead with them to do so. And if this is what sinks the GOP into oblivion, much as we hope the Democratic Party ends up in oblivion as well, then so be it. If they have to die on the hill that is the genocidal state of Israel, then so be it. The beautiful thing about somebody like Tucker Carlson is that he has fuck you money and he doesn't have to answer to anybody. And the fact that he has made this a part of his political crusade for whatever purpose it is, I applaud him. And I applaud anybody else like Carrie Prejean-Baller, who apparently we may be able to get on our podcast soon. So we'll see how that unfolds, working on that one. Tucker Carlson is not somebody that I agree with on a whole host of issues, but I can respect the man for doing something that very few people are willing to do, put himself in harm's way. Now, he's probably protected, as you so often have suggested, that he's probably intelligence, and I wouldn't doubt it for a second that he is. But he's using it for good, which is a rare thing. You don't see that too often. What do you think?
I think that there's obviously some reason that he is treated a little bit better, seemingly, than other people that are going after the state, going after Ziohel. I mean, I think it would be silly to not acknowledge that he is able to just sort of like go around and do things, and he seems to be doing okay. So yeah, I mean, that to me indicates there's something or someone that keeps him safe.
The downfall of the state of Israel is not going to happen in just one magnificent spectacle. Although maybe it will. I mean, you never know. Knowing them, anything's possible. Mm-hmm. But I still believe that the only reason why the world over even deals with them in any capacity is because of the Hannibal Directive. I think that if anybody on this planet is capable of dropping a nuclear weapon, it is Netanyahu and the genocidal state that is Israel.
Yes.
And that is the only reason why they're still standing, because they've made it abundantly clear, if we go, we're taking as many people with us as we can. And do I think that they would point a nuke at our country in the process? Yes, I certainly do.
Yeah. So, well, they've proven they have no loyalty. They have no concept of honor and loyalty to us.
Not at all. Yeah. Think about how brazen the average Zion Nazi is in this country. And in the second half of the show tonight, we're going to get to exactly how brazen the Zion Nazis are when it comes to going after somebody who is revered in the Black community like Spike Lee. And they don't care. Why would they care? He wears a Palestinian shirt on national TV.
They don't care, but he doesn't care either.
He doesn't care either. I agree.
He doesn't care either.
But it goes to show you, like, when genocidal scumbag Robert Kraft, owner of the New England Patriots, decides to pump $10 million into an ad at the Super Bowl, basically comparing Jewish kids to Black kids in the same context. Yet that type of thing doesn't go over very well. And it makes them look as petty and petulant as anybody. And that's what their ideology represents, which hopefully is on the way out. With that being said, Jen, we have an esteemed guest that is here for the
We
evening.
do, our guest. So for those of you who are, not liberal like me and more to the left, I just joke because somebody thought I was too liberal, but you are aware that I had hosted panel discussions, a series called Mission Abolition, and we showed my friend Matthew Solomon's film Reimagining Safety, and then the following day we held 3 different panels of people discussing different aspects of abolition. And that is where I met our guest, MiDian Shofner. And she is a community organizer in Denver. And I know that she has a lot of very current experience dealing with police brutality and nonsense. And like you guys know, I believe in abolition, but MiDian is a community organizer and is the CEO and founder of the organization is called Epitome of Black Excellence and Partnership. And her organization uplifts the legacy of Black excellence and creates partnerships with other communities that are also committed to equity. So this is, just me building my web and cross-pollinating with people that I feel like are on my team. And I just, I wanted to bring her back to talk more about what she's dealing with out in Denver. So welcome, MiDian, to Revolutionary Change.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I enjoyed listening to the conversation before.
Oh, that, when I meet people like you through a particular event or a special event, I never know how they necessarily react to the rest of our political nonsense when you come on as a guest just for our regular show. Because, you and I really didn't even talk very much because I happily was not the moderator. I got to sit back and just sort of do the chat. But I'm glad you were willing to come back. And I want to just start with your sort of origin story as to what got you involved in not just abolition, but I guess also just in community organizing and where your start was.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the question. Really, when I think about the work that I do, I really honestly just feel like I've gone from up next to up now. So I am 4th generation Colorado. My children are 5th and my grandchildren are 6th generation Colorado. So we've been here for a very long time. And so when you talk about just having connectivity and intentional awareness of your history, I think that's where a lot of us are able to find our posture and our position on just the way that we see our worldview, the way that we engage with our lived experiences. So growing up, it was particularly the women in my family that I would watch that would do a lot of the organizing when something happened in community, be it if it was something that we had to survive or if it was because we were thriving. They had a way of figuring out how to create infrastructure that would create protection. And then also they were the ones that created and curated experiences of celebration. So when I was young, unbeknownst to me, I might have been in the corner coloring in my coloring book, but I was absorbing all of that. And so, growing into my adulthood, I always had a voice and I always knew I had a voice, but I was actually in corporate America for almost 20 years. And I retired out of corporate America and took a leap because I knew that the work that I was doing was not what I was called to do. And so after having some purposeful conversations, I realized that this was an opportunity for me to lean into what I was called to do. And again, go from up next to up now. So that's the way that my journey started. And it's always been there. So it's been a great experience. And when the work is rewarding, there's not really much that you can complain about.
So it sounds like you almost come from a Black Panther-esque background in terms of mutual aid and service, like just your perspective on what you do for your community and just growing up with that. So, where did you take that into dealing with the punishment bureaucracy, right? Like we know this is not, you've read Propaganda, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Right. And so, now ever since I read that, I can't even say criminal justice system because it seems just absurd. But so what got you into that? And I know you deal a lot with like police brutality and stuff that is just off the wall.
Sure. So I think when we talk about the police brutality and fatality, the Black community lives that out loud the loudest. So when you talk about doing work to love and protect your community, that is inevitably a space that you're going to go into. So that's where the movement is right now. It's particularly for our community here in Denver, and we're adjacent to Aurora. And if you might know the national news that the Aurora police have made in the things that they've done, and so it's really just paying attention to what the community is asking. And that is what the ask is to create community and create movement around how we can just see different outcomes, right? I mean, this is not something that we're asking to be revolutionary, because we see that the policing systems, they understand how to de-escalate. We see them do it all the time with our white counterparts. They understand what it means to not over police or hyper police. They understand what it means to engage thoughtfully. So in the parallel, right, of working to figure out how do we actually reimagine what the safety looks like in our community, in the parallel for the Black community, we have to navigate and live what is happening currently. And so that's what the ask is, and that is what the call is, and that part of the work that we do.
Would you say, I mean, to me, I've gotten to this point in my mind where I recognize that revolution is not possible without abolition. It's just not. Like, those things to me are inextricably intertwined. And based on what you're saying, that just verifies that to me, because when you're saying that the largest needs in Black community or in your Black community and other vulnerable communities, the largest need for community aid is dealing with police misconduct and police brutality and the punishment bureaucracy. So that's what then clearly revolution, it has to involve ending that, because it is not working. It's just not working. So I don't know if you want to give some like recent examples of some of the stories that you have, so that people understand what we're talking about. And again, I am so beyond that this is reformable. This is not reformable. It just isn't. So so would you talk a little bit, give some examples of some of this, of the crap that people deal with on a regular basis?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to affirm what you said. The policing system was never designed to protect people, right? It was never designed to care. It was always designed to control, and it was about property control. And that's still what it is, and the reason why it exists. So I 100% agree that it needs to be abolished, because it was never birthed in trust. So some of the current stories that we are working with. So we've had, I would call it a crisis of injustice in Colorado. The stories that have made that global space, like the stories of Elijah McClain, are echoes of what has been happening in this state for a very long time. And so in most recent times, we have been walking along the side the families of Kylan Lewis, who was shot by the Aurora police unarmed. He had a cell phone and a snack in his hand, and he was gunned down, one fatal bullet, one fatal shot by a SWAT officer. And SWAT, we know, are trained to shoot to kill, right? And that's exactly what he did. He moved from a non-lethal option to a lethal option before he engaged with Kylan Lewis. And sure enough, we had a mother who had to bury her son. We're also walking alongside the family of Jalen Sebron. And this is probably one of the most egregious cases that I've seen as I've been doing this work. Jalen Sebron, all of 23 years old, turned 23 years old 2 days before he was slain. And he went to it was an event center to celebrate his birthday and to tell his family alongside his fiance that they were expecting their first child. And so inside of the main event center, there was a situation that took place where his family was under attack. And so Jalen went into a mode of protection. He was a legally registered firearm owner. He understood exactly what it meant to be in a restraint position, to be in protection position. And he was also in an open carry county. So when he was getting his fiance and his sisters to the vehicle to get them to safety, he simply had his firearm pointed down towards the ground. And when the officer showed up, first off, in the body cam footage, the officer is putting together an AR-15 as he is arriving on the scene. He gets out of the car, and within 7 seconds, He's engaged with Jalen Sebron, and within 3 seconds, he's already shot 9 rounds from an AR-15, of which 7 of those hit Jalen Sebron in the back. Jalen was not even turned towards the officer or making a threat to anyone, and he was shot in the back 7 times with an AR-15. So that was obviously the opportunity for total destruction and total annihilation of someone's life. And so we are walking alongside that family. And then there was another story that recently went at that national level, and it was the execution of Rajon Bell Stubblefield. This man was shot 3 times by the Aurora police, of which that 3rd shot was a bullet straight to the head. And it was something that, we watched him being baited into his own execution. The wild part about Rajon's story is that he was actually in an accident before the officer came on scene, or as the officer was in pursuit of him. And interestingly enough, I was the one that he rear-ended. And I just happened to be in the area, doing some shopping. And one of the loudest activists against policing in the city of Aurora and in the state of Colorado happened to be the one that he rear-ended. So I got a front row seat as I watched that officer bait that man into his execution. And so all of these families, when we talk about justice, all of these shootings have been deemed justified by the legal system that we have to navigate. And so these families now are left with only an opportunity to pursue them in court via civil litigation, but we continue to fight. And so we're doing a lot of work to change the laws here in Colorado. We've got a legislative session that we are very actively engaged in, and we've got a proactive law that ideally will become at least a deterrent for what we're seeing with what is happening to our people.
Yeah.
MiDian, I'm curious from my perspective, what impact, if any, do you think ending qualified immunity would have on communities?
I think that ending qualified immunity, I think it elevates the conversation in a community as far as what police accountability looks like. However, if you're not able to move that conversation from concept to practicality, you still have a problem. In Colorado, we have a bill. It was a Senate Bill 2217 that removed qualified immunity from officers in the state of Colorado. And it also created some measures where you're not able to just hop from one jurisdiction to another if you're an officer. The post-certification is also impacted when there are some liabilities that are founded. But what we are seeing is that bill is still too conceptual because it's been being litigated, and interpretation did not happen at the statutory level. Interpretation is now very vague, and we're seeing that happen in the courts. So qualified immunity, removing that is one step. But what happens when we have that conversation is we're still in a reactive state. We're still talking about someone burying their child, and then that law turns on. That's not enough. And that's what we've challenged our legislators to let them know, that every time this happens, we've got the system looking at these families saying we've broken no law, and they're burying their children. And so we looked at the lawmakers and said, if they're telling us they're breaking no law, you're the lawmaker. You need to create a law that actually does protect the people that it's supposed to serve. So I think that the conversation about removing qualified immunity is important. It is still reactive, and we have to do more.
I would definitely say, from my perspective, that eliminating qualified immunity creates the type of necessary, it opens up a necessary floodgate, which I've always felt is the biggest issue with policing in the United States, which is there is a code of silence that exists amongst police, those that are actually there to serve and protect versus those that are clearly there for reasons other than that. And when you have these bad apples that get protected, it ultimately comes down to financial implications. And if there is any inkling that their activity, what they end up doing on the job could actually affect their ability to not only make a living, but to have a pension, that's where police will police the police. They'll have no choice, because under no circumstances should police brutality, misconduct, on any circumstances be financially responsible. That burden is placed on that of the citizens that live in a given community. It should be on the police, full stop. Now, again, like you said, it's not the action that is going to be the silver bullet that ultimately ends the problem. But I do think it's one that, if it were to be undertaken, would substantially improve where we stand today. Because today it is a total free-for-all, and I'm curious what other layers might actually exist. I do believe that you probably have a lot of problems. I mean, I've been to Colorado a few times. Jen has obviously lived in Colorado. I'm guessing that there probably are also problems with, people who are, let's say, members of white supremacist groups who end up in policing. And this is something that they take pride in, no pun intended. Where do you see it in terms of the trajectory of what policing has become today, what type of people are attracted to it, and what type of either legislation or initiatives would you want to see to ultimately make the change that is necessary?
Sure. So I think that policing today is what we're living out is just an iteration, right, of what policing has always been. It has always been an entry point for those who want to be masked behind a badge, a uniform. Essentially, countless people have traded the hood in for the badge, right? And so I think that also this is a space where you find yourself disconnecting and disassociating yourself with your own community when you are in spaces of policing. It's almost in a training, and it's a culture to where, you go from the Black community saying Black Lives Matter, and then we come out somehow, some way with interpretation of Blue Lives Matter. And so when you disassociate yourself from your own community and your own humanity, there's no entry point for care. There's no entry point for intentionality and engaging thoughtfully without bias and without cover up and all of the things that we've seen. So I think that the entry point for the police is, this is a space where you are armed and deputized to do as much damage as possible. And you would want I'm not going to say that every single police officer is thinking through that lens. However, I do know that every single police officer has an entry point of that lens, because that is the culture that they are coming into. You can be the nicest person, but when you are inside of a system that does the steal, kill, and destroy, the nicety of who you are as a person is not going to outdo the culture that you unfortunately are upholding and that you're ascribed to. So with that being said, I think that when policing becomes a pattern of what we're seeing today, it's only a matter of time before those nice people have to shift, adjust, and adapt to that culture. So, but legislatively, what we would like to see is, we actually would like to see things that are proactive. Anytime that we've looked at these cases, these shots are being fired within seconds of officers arriving. The narrative of "I feared for my life" is an umbrella that they use when they show up. And it is absolutely obnoxious to even try to accept that narrative, because you're showing up in full armor. You're showing up with the helmet, with the bulletproof vest. You are geared up and down, and you have probably the most lethal weapon on scene. So you fearing for your life and claiming that you have to make a split-second decision is not a narrative that we should have ever accepted, because that's just not the reality. So legislatively, we are asking for something to be much more proactive. One of those measures is, when we talk about the body cam footage, that's part of the problem as far as the way that the policing system is able to control the narrative.
Right.
They go, they kill, and then they say, shame on the person we killed. We're a better community without them, and we have a hero amongst us because they killed this bad person. So body cam footage having to release before the officers or before the system is able to criminalize and dehumanize is critical. If you take away the opportunity for them to control the narrative, and now you have a system that requires that the community metabolizes what happened on that scene first, that is a proactive way that you can start saying, if you do this, this is going to be something that will be exposed, and you will have to answer for it with intention and with honesty. We also believe, in the midst of that body cam footage piece, there needs to be a gag order. The police don't get to come out and criminalize and dehumanize anymore. Remove that opportunity, and now they have to start speaking from a lens of honesty. Another measure that we are asking for is, when we talk about paid administrative leave, let's actually start talking about impacting that compensation. There should be a percentage, right? Paid administrative leave having a tiered percentage of if you go on paid administrative leave, you are not going to get 100% of your pay. So now when you do show up, like you were talking about, Peter, you do have to have a conversation with yourself to say, hey, you know what, if I pull this trigger, my livelihood is going to shift and it is going to change. We also believe that the families should be afforded victims assistance. When these families have to bury their child, they are not afforded any victims assistance, at least not in Colorado. I don't know if it's happening anywhere else. And they're telling these families the reason why they don't qualify is because there was a crime committed. Well, funny thing, we never got to court. That person never saw their day in court. So how can you assure that there was a crime committed unless you're talking about the officer, right? So that's another measure that we would like to see, because once we start impacting the funds that are tied to other spaces, there are more stakeholders that start to come to the table and ask that please stop killing these people because this is impacting our bottom line. And then the other piece is we formally believe that police should never be able to investigate police when there is officer-involved shootings or brutality. That needs to be something that is independent of the police. And so what we are asking our state to do is to have the Attorney General's office have an independent unit that will investigate officer-involved shootings or officer-involved brutality, so that it removes that bias that we know is going to happen and that we know we're going to see. It also removes the opportunity for the district attorneys that are oftentimes aligned with the police. And that's the reason why we continue to hear these narratives of a justified shooting. So those measures, we believe, are going to offer some proactive ways that will start to protect the people versus waiting for something to happen and allowing death or brutality and trauma to normalize when our laws turn on. That's too late, and that's not enough.
I agree. When you talk about having a special commission assigned for officer-involved shootings, which is another way of just saying they killed somebody, the idea that it shouldn't even have police officers or retired police officers, I would think it would be something that is civilian, and it has to be people that do understand that field to some extent so that they can actually look at the cases like in some sort of forensic. I mean, they have to understand how certain things work, but it should not be people that are affiliated in any way with the police or ex-police.
Agreed. 100% agree. And I know that there are some oversight, examples across the country, but I haven't seen an oversight model that really has a legally binding opportunity to really inform the outcome of what happens next. So I agree. There needs to be an intentional space where there is an opportunity for those investigations to happen without the police involvement at all. It just doesn't make sense for police to investigate themselves. We've never seen that outcome be something that was fair, unbiased, or intentional. Like in the matter of Rajon Belt Stubblefield, of which I was an eyewitness. I was on the scene. I was part of the scene that happened. The police still have not asked me for my statement. They have not asked me for my witness. And it's been over almost 180 days since Rajon Belt Stubblefield was executed by the police.
I would think, based on all of the different variables that exist, we see this particularly when it comes to the Hasbara narrative on Israel. I do believe that when it comes to the pro-police narrative in the United States, we see this with various, we'll just say paid accounts on social media. I'm inclined to believe that a lot of the Blue Lives Matter movement that exists, it's very political, and it's very, I would think, selective to certain regions and areas and whatnot. Is there anything that you can attribute to the pro-police propaganda or copaganda, as the saying goes, that you find on social media, that accounts are basically being boosted and paid in order to push that narrative?
Ooh, me. White supremacy. Yeah. Me. Okay.
I mean, yes, I think that, there obviously is that type of activity out there, especially when you talk about, just the rage baiting that happens in the social media atmosphere. And I will say, however, like, no one can hold a narrative unless that narrative is something that we have crafted, right? When I've gone into policing stations, I see the flag with the blue line that goes across it. right? I've seen the, I mean, you're actually literally discoloring the American flag to ensure that you're making a statement that this thin blue line exists. It is very real and it exists here. And so when we talk about like the propaganda and all of the things that happen, and there's, promotion through the paid social media spaces, at some point as a society, we have to understand that what we accept becomes our culture. And in that regard, there has been an acceptance by society, be it if you are with it or against it, there has been an acceptance that there is this thing called Blue Lives Matter, or there is this thing called the thin blue line. And so if we want to combat that, or if we want to push back against that, then we have to let people know that we don't accept that narrative and we don't accept that outcome. And it's going to have to be something that is also a complete shift in how we think about safety. This is nothing about policing in our country, again, was ever built on the patterns of safety. It was always built on a pattern of harm.
Right. The people that feel safe from police, that's a class thing. Okay. That's the class war that we're dealing with. So, because like we're saying, so police exist to protect capital and to work for the oppressor, to keep everybody in line. Right. So unless you're the people that want to keep us in line, they don't work for you. That's what I tell people. They're not there to protect and serve you. Correct. They're there to protect and serve their owners and capital, which you are not. So, it's just very important for people to understand this. And, everybody gets so threatened and intimidated by the concept of abolition. And so, I've decided, like, I'm not even going to pussyfoot around anymore. I'm just not. We don't need to reform them. We need to get rid of them. And the only thing I can say that is the remotest silver lining about the nonsense that is going on with the ICE Gestapo is that because it is starting to affect not just certain communities, the whole concept of policing and brutality and, basically summary executions is getting a lot more juice right now. And people are seeing it and it's making them. So I feel like now with this going on with ICE, it almost makes it a ripe opportunity for me. That's part of why I wanted to do this now, is I feel like people are a little bit more open to the idea of abolition when you're watching people be executed in the street by enforcement. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think, so I'm curious what your perspective is about what's going on now with ICE in, relative to what policing has always been, right? Like relative to how we know this is not new, but it seems like more people are becoming aware.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as it pertains to what we're seeing with ICE, I mean, it breaks my heart to say this, but I literally would just sum it up by saying, welcome to Black America.
Yeah.
This is something that we've been able to, or we've had to endure. And, there have been bystanders. There have been people that have, simply dehumanized or fell into the narrative, right? And so when you talk about points of intersectionality, that's where we do meet each other at a crossroad, and we have an opportunity as a collective to figure out how do we get different outcomes? What do we do together to ensure that we have different outcomes? I will say, however, as someone who has lived in Black America all her life, I have seen trends that have never been transformation. We have seen, when during the reckoning, if you will, of 2020, we saw a ton of Black boxes on social media, pictures, and we saw a lot of different, things that were happening and gestures that were taking place. And that is something that it's something that we lean into as Black people. I can't speak for all Black people. As a Black person,
you don't.
That is something that I lean into, and I see it, I recognize it, and I also cringe about the trauma that's going to be coming on the other side of it when we realize that this is a trend and not a transformation for a lot of the people that we are seeing trying to buy into it. So I think for my hope is that we recognize that this has been a problem. Abolition needs to absolutely happen. And we need to start having conversations about what does it look like to build back together. And if you're not down for that conversation, if you're not down for that part of the work, get out the way and just go back to being a bystander. I would rather somebody be a bystander that I can see than someone that is sitting in a trend and is not down for transformation. So that's what my hope is. And when I see the conversations elevate and escalate, because they are rightfully so, the lives that were lost were absolutely tragic, because again, those are people that have lost their parents, their loved ones, and that is something that is not natural order. And we have to hold space for that. And we also have to acknowledge that now that we are here in this point of intersectionality, we crashed into each other at this intersection. Let's make sure that as we go from here, we stay interconnected and we stop waiting to crash at the next intersection.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Strike while the iron's hot. That's why I feel like talking abolition now isn't going to put, I mean, look, the people are always going to tell me I'm like a hippie freak, whatever. I get it. Bleeding heart, whatever. I hear it all the time. Commie Karen. So like all of that, but it definitely feels more ripe right now to be having this discussion, because people are seeing that our system of policing, this militarized boot on our necks, it doesn't serve us. And it's just keeping us in the same oppressed system. So we're not going to be able to undo that system so long as their boots are on our neck, right? So it's all connected. Yeah. And people are so scared of this concept. And it's like, you know, I know you were in the film, right? You were in Reimagining Safety, weren't you?
I don't think I was in that one. I've been in a lot of things, but I don't think I was in Reimagine Safety. I'm pretty sure I would have remembered like working with Matthew that intentionally. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we know that so few of police reported crimes, like 4% of those, are actual crimes that we want those people not around us, right? Like crimes where, whether it's murder, rape, assault, robbery, you know, the ones that we don't want those people around us. And so what I suggest is at a bare minimum, and tell me if you think this, that all police budgets should be 4% of what they are. Okay, 4%, because the 96% that they're getting isn't needed for policing. It's needed for other things to deal with the people that are not the 4%. So at a minimum, let's cut it down to 4%. That's what I think. And to me, that just seems reasonable.
No, I mean that the maths, right? Like right now in the system that we're in, the math is not mathing. And I think it also leans into the prison industrial complex, right? I mean, you would think that, you know, with all of the policing that we have, with all of the prison systems that we have that are completely lubricated and functioning with money and funded and all of that, you would think that this would be the safest place on the globe, right? Because we have so much, you know, safety, and that's such a priority. Well, if that's the case, then you all are either lying to us, which yes, you are, or the incompetence is absolutely astonishing. Because if we are right, that part. So if that is supposed to be what the magic is to keep us all in line or in check, well, then why aren't we the safest place on the planet? It just,
because it's a jobs program. It's about getting paid. It's about keeping the cycle going. That's why anytime a government program is created, it's about solving one problem and creating another one.
It's about dehumanizing people, and particularly certain communities, and keeping them in their place. That's what it's about, and keeping us all fighting and working to keep kicking down. That's their whole purpose. Their whole purpose exists to tell us to kick down. And I feel like my whole purpose is to take people's righteous rage and anger and direct them in the correct direction, right? And if that turns out to be like Mangione monetary theory for some people, so be it. As long as rage is aimed in the correct direction. Do you want to do some stories with MiDian? Like, do you have some stuff you wanted to like do, or?
Well, if you do want to talk, you did mention you wanted to touch on the Cuba story, which I think is, you know.
Would you be interested in hanging out and talking about Cuba? Do you know anything about what's going on with Cuba?
I'm not well versed in it. I'm happy to always be a part of a conversation.
No, you don't need to be well versed in it. It's just, we're just going to sort of read an article, talk about little Narco Rubio and shoot the shit. But yeah, I'd love to just hear, because this is part of the cross-pollination. This is what I talk about with cross-pollinating. Yeah. All right. So which one did we want to do first?
Cuba.
Well, I know, but I had two Cuba things, and I did send them numbered.
Colin?
I did. I know I sent them numbered, and nobody tells me I'm not nice to Colin.
All right.
What happened to it?
I don't know. We're about
Well,
to find
here's
out.
something that's Trump Cuba MP4, but that's not, I'm not sure what. No.
Colin, come on, baby. What's going on here? Okay, this is on you, Jen. So you got to check.
I numbered my stuff. I numbered it. It was like
Doesn't
Cuba
matter.
1,
Check the
Cuba
private
2.
chat. He wants to know which one you're referring to because he doesn't know.
Oh my God. Okay. Entertain our guest for a moment.
I can tell you as a white man and my personal experiences having
He
been
speaks
in
for all white men, by the way.
I do speak for all white men. I do. Absolutely, I do. No, I lived in the Bronx for 2 years, and I remember the first time that I heard gunshots, and I remember the first time I had my car broken into, and just various things that go on in impoverished neighborhoods. And the one thing that I think people just have a tendency to not want to recognize is that we are living in a broken economic and political system. It's broken. You can't fix this. It has to be completely torn down and turned into something different. And you think about the 2 years that I spent living there, and I can tell you, especially that first year, which was very tough. I mean, I lived in a room with a mattress on the floor and a metal folding chair, and I had to hang my clothes on the wall. I mean, I lived in poverty. So I know what this is like. I may not have been raised in poverty, but I went through various machinations of it growing up. There were many years where we were living hand to mouth. So I understand that experience, but try having to go through that for several generations and what that does to people. And how when you think you're finally getting your way out of it, you just can't seem quite able to get there. It's because the system is designed to make sure that you never get out of it. There's a reason why learning how to live off the grid, like you can in a state like Colorado, is essential. It's essential to understand money and not necessarily, I'm going to be like Floyd Mayweather and flash a whole bunch of dollars at the screen. In reality, what a lot of people are hopefully learning is that there is a reason why the dollar keeps getting devalued. It's devalued so that way you can never get up to the top. It's designed for only a select few people to actually get there. And then you talk about black faces in high places, you see exactly what a lot of them will end up doing in order to remain in the good graces of those that have created that construct. And to those that are actually supposed to be out there preaching the message, like, let's say, Nina Turner, who's a friend of ours, Dr. Cornel West is a friend of ours, they never get featured prominently the way that they should, because they're preaching the type of message that needs to be heard. And it isn't just for the black community. It's for all communities that are suffering through this, because I would say 80% of the people who live in this country are, if they're not living in abject poverty, they're living one bad break away from being exactly there.
Yes. Okay, we're ready. We're ready. Colin, the short is, and this is going to be like this. I picked this because it gives like a nice little concise explanation about what is going on in Cuba, because I don't think people really understand that it's what is going on.
I got it.
Oh, it's below. Okay, that is it. Okay, here, this is it.
Donald Trump want to break Cuba. There will be
Hold on.
Why does Donald Trump want to break Cuba? There will be no more oil or money going to Cuba. Zero. It's partly about timing.
Conditions continue to worsen in Cuba as the U.S. cuts off critical supplies to the communist regime there.
But it might also be deeply personal.
Cuba is a disaster. It's run by incompetent, senile men.
Cuba is going to be something we'll end up talking about, because Cuba is a failing nation right now.
So one thing about the communist nation of Cuba that doesn't get talked about enough is the fact that they have a universal healthcare system, and their doctors are so good that they get sent out to different parts of the world to help with their failing healthcare problems.
That's the next story. That's the next story. That's the
But remember, they're a failing nation. You know why they're a failing nation in these people's eyes? Because they've never gotten over Batista being taken down, because Cuba was an island of perpetual wealth and benefit for the very rich and very powerful. And now it's not. And that's it.
Let it play. It's just
very
a
badly failing nation.
Timing-wise, Cuba has almost never been weaker. It's literally in the dark, chronic blackouts, because to generate electricity, Cuba needs oil, but it can't get enough oil because the U.S. is blocking its two main sources of oil, Venezuela.
President Trump says the U.S. carried out large-scale strikes on Venezuela overnight.
They lived off Venezuelan money and oil, and none of that's coming now.
And Mexico. The U.S. has put immense pressure on both countries to choke Cuba's energy supply.
The Cuban government is really in a difficult position right now. It is in the midst of a humanitarian crisis.
But also, look who's advising Trump on foreign policy.
Do you want to say something about that, Marco, please?
Well, I mean, I just gave you a statement a few minutes ago about, when the president speaks, you should take him seriously.
Trump's Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, is the son of Cuban immigrants. And for those who feel like they've lost a great deal in Castro's socialist revolution in the 1960s, their literal homes in many cases, punishing the regime is personal.
Yeah, look, if I lived in Havana and I was in the government, I'd be concerned.
He made his political career based on hostility toward the Cuban government. And so, in some ways, the policy of hostility towards Cuba is very much his personal policy.
But finally, consider how this might be personal for Donald Trump, too.
13 U.S. presidents have come and gone, and the Castro regime remains in power.
Cuba's communist existence has been a real knot of tension for the U.S. for the better part of a century. If Donald Trump were to undo that knot,
finally bringing down a communist regime that's been 90 miles off the coast of the U.S. would be a huge feather in the cap of Donald Trump.
Being able to say that I am the U.S. president who did the thing that no other U.S. president since 1959 was able to do, which was end the Cuban Revolution and the Cuban Communist government.
What a crowning achievement that would be.
Oh, it would be really wonderful. It'd be the most incredible thing that I've done since yesterday.
So,
yesterday, I decided to broker peace.
That's the gist of the story, right? Like the gist of the story is it's a personal vendetta for Marco Rubio. And this is something that we've also seen with Venezuela. When it comes to the people that are from those countries that support regime change, it is always the wealthy white people that were kicked out of their country because they were not allowed to just be in charge anymore. And regular people got to say so, and they didn't like that. So it's sort of like the white South Africans that are annoyed that apartheid was ended. Okay. So when we listen to people like Marco Rubio, he comes from one of those types of families. That is their vendetta, is that these were the revolutions that allowed for regular people to have some power and control, and the elites don't like that. So that's his beef, okay? And I hate that they call it a regime. Anywho, MiDian, anything interesting to you from that video?
I think that tying it back to like the end of apartheid, because that was where my head was going, was, when that was happening, there was so much, targeting and, all the things, and it still happens today, through that, if you really look at it through that lens. What I first off, I just want to say, if anyone from Cuba is listening, I'm not with it. So if y'all come, please don't come for me. Miss my address, because I'm not with it. I'm not with this man. But I think that the part that is really the hardest for me when I hear about these stories are the ones that are living just on a day-to-day basis. I'm just trying to go to work. I'm just trying to feed my family. I'm just trying to go to school. And when I think about it through that perspective, there's so much that you can really translate that to, because there are young eyes that are watching what is happening to their country, right? And what narrative are they getting about the America that is coming to destroy them, right? And so the perpetuance of that trauma, I think, is something that we all really need to be thinking about, because what does healing even look like, right? I mean, humanity, I believe, is going to outlive the man that sits in the White House. Like, it's going to outlive him. And so when we do start talking about what is actually, if we get to that space, right, at that promised land of abolition and restructure and all of that, like, what does healing even look like when you have an entire generation that would know nothing except for this pain. Like, it really is scary to me.
It's well, and essentially what we're doing, it's interesting you say that, what we're doing to Cuba right now is essentially what's happening in Gaza as far as starving them out, right? So there's these people on an island, they're not getting fuel, their resources are shut down, they're telling their people, you need to start growing your own food. And, you know, it's not like people can just go do that. You know, most normal, regular people going about their life in a suburb or wherever they are, they don't just know how to grow food. So yeah, essentially, we're going to now be sitting here starving the Cuban people. And this story, I thought in particular, was interesting. And I also wanted to give props because the Cuban doctors, and this is what you were saying before, Peter, their healthcare system is actually really decent there, have always gone around when there's disasters, when there's problems, when there's like, they are notorious to go around and serve other parts of the world in medical missions. And the US is now making that not be possible. So that's what this story is. Do you want to read this?
Colin?
There we go.
Guatemala announced last week that it will begin phasing out its 3-decade-old program under which Cuban doctors worked in the country to fill gaps in its healthcare system. Communist-ruled Cuba, under heavy U.S. sanctions, has been earning billions of dollars each year by leasing thousands of members of its white coat army to countries around the world, especially in Latin America. Havana has used its medical missions worldwide as a tool for international diplomacy. Seems pretty noble and a good use of international diplomacy.
And so now we're threatening Guatemala to do this.
Yeah, so why are some countries withdrawing from the program? Guatemala's Ministry of Public Health said in a statement that it would begin a gradual termination over this year. The phased withdrawal of the Cuban Medical Brigade stems from an analysis of the mission's completion of its cycles. The statement added that the Cuban medical mission was meant to support Guatemala through the 1998 Hurricane Mitch, which devastated parts of Central America, overwhelmed local hospitals, and left rural communities with almost no access to medical care. The Ministry of Health is developing a phased strategic replacement plan that includes hiring national personnel, strengthening incentives for hard-to-reach positions, strategic redistribution of human resources, and specialized technical support. The Cuban mission in Guatemala comprises 412 medical workers, including 333 doctors. The Central American country's decision comes amid growing pressure from the U.S., which wants to stop Cuban doctors from serving abroad. Well, there it is. The move to starve Cuba of much-needed revenue as a major share of the doctors' incomes goes to government coffers. Cuba has been facing severe power, food, and medical shortages amid an oil blockade imposed by the Trump administration since January.
So that's the Cuba story. I thought those two things were a good, concise explanation for somebody like that wouldn't know what's going on right now in Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I am curious, like, you know, when you are obviously very community focused, and we definitely are big supporters of, you know, Act Local and mutual aid and all that, but you so see the interconnectedness of all of it. Like, you see the interconnectedness between Cop City and what's going on in Palestine, and you see what's going on. It's all the same thing. It's all this sort of white supremacy colonization. And I feel like that's the common thread that we see in all of it. And I was just curious, like, if you were feeling like that too from that.
Yeah, I mean, it is. You can definitely pull the thread through. I mean, because at the end of the day, it's hate, it's violence, it's disgusting, it's harm, and it's about control, right? And I just wonder, how long is it going to take for other countries and other nations and other communities to stop hitching their wagon to the US? Like, at some point we need to feel what we deserve. And I don't want that to be our reality, but that's where we are, right? At some point, these nations are going to unhitch their wagon from, and it's already happening, in my opinion, right? We're a laughing stock, clearly. And And it's even worse because this is the second round, right? We already had this guy, and this is the second version. We had him, left him, and then came back. Like the domestic violence comparison is absolutely. Like,
we are battered. We are battered
yes,
spouses.
100%. So I just wonder how long will it take for these nations to say, you know what, the America that we've been allowing to think is the exceptionalism or the greatest or whatnot, because they really allow us to think that. I think that in private conversations, we're not what we say we are to other people. So at some point, we are that little sister or that little brother or that little sibling that is now just, I mean, we're getting on everyone's nerves. So unhitch your wagon, nations, unhitch your wagon. Show us what isolation actually feels like. So that way we can say, you know what, the only way we move forward is through revolution. The only way we can get back in spaces where we can share on this globe is through revolution and abolition and doing something different, because we need to feel it. We need to experience it. Those that have access to authority and those that have access to the purse strings, whatever it is, we need to feel what isolation looks like. And we need to experience that. So then we can say we need leaders for a time such as healing. And we have never had to be held accountable for the pain and the harms that we have pushed out to other countries and nations. Never.
No, we're the bully of the world. I said it from the very beginning. Trump facilitates the revolution, and he does it because the Democrats, most people go back to brunch. They just think, oh, everything's okay now. The decorum is back. So we're back in civilized society. So, and Trump's the most honest liar that we've ever had. He just is. So I don't even
totally thank me for that. I really did a great job.
And I do. I think he is the best representation of what America is in the world. And as I feel as a person, I have infinitely more in common and feel solidarity with people in Cuba and people in Venezuela than I do with the oppressors that are in this country or all over the world, right? Like, so those people are suffering like everybody will be here too. They just get it first, just like Gazans get it first, but it's coming around because the empire is dying.
It is.
And it's going to do everything it can on its way out. It's like in the death throes. And I am here for it. I am here for it. And I am okay. I always say, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. There are many communities that live uncomfortable and now it's just spreading, but that's what's needed. So it just makes me feel like motivated.
Absolutely. And I love the thought of get uncomfortable, stay uncomfortable. But then I have a challenge. Transform your comfort. Don't go seeking your comfort again. Your comfort is what got us uncomfortable, right? So you need to transform your comfort. And, I think that when we talk about feeling and that empathic feeling that we have for those who are in Cuba and in Gaza, the part that is also alarming to me is that, again, when I think about that single mom or that family or that village that is experiencing this, I don't know if they know that there are people here that have and hold empathy, because we are feeling it too. We are not proud of this. This is not what we want to be or how we want to be represented. And my fear is that narrative never crosses over to that other nation. I don't know. I don't know. Because I know, like, when we talk about enslavement and the disconnect of the African and the Black American, that empathy never translated. It never translated. That's why there's such a divide between the African and the Black American, because we never understood the stories of those that did not come through that door of no return. So while I'm hopeful with you, right, we have a lot of access and a lot of technology, but I'm talking about that village or that young mind that just doesn't understand, why does the world have to be like this? Do they get the luxury and the power knowing that there are people in that place that is causing so much pain that actually are thinking of me?
Yes. They do. And I'm going to tell you, I know that from been doing this for enough years and have met enough people. I even have people on the chat that they'll come up, hi from Gaza. And so what I know, and this is something that I've been saying since day one with what's going on in Gaza, is we feel powerless because we essentially are. But I know for a fact that the people in Gaza they feel a sense of comfort and they feel a sense of solidarity, and they don't feel like they're invisible when we still push for it. It's like they feel seen. And I get that all the time, and from other places too. So I do think that, and they know that there are American people in the empire that are on their team. They don't hate Americans. They hate empire. People in other countries are infinitely better at understanding nuance than we are here. So that is something that I've got, like, whether it's the Iranians, whether it's the Palestinians, whether it's the Venezuelans, they know the difference between American empire and the American people. They do. And I take comfort in that, and that most countries have a better grasp than we do.
Let's
I'm going
finish
to put my hope in your hope for sure. So,
and on that note, in conclusion, I think there is nothing wrong with wanting to be comfortable. But here's the thing about being comfortable that a lot of people who are comfortable don't seem to recognize. Being comfortable is a privilege. It's not a right. And there are far too many people that think it's a right. That I have, it's like the Zio pieces of shit out there who say, I don't feel safe. Guess what, motherfucker? You don't have the right to feel safe. You have the privilege of feeling safe if you're fortunate enough to be safe.
Correct.
If you're not, welcome to real life. Get out of your bubble. You're not going back, and we're not going to let you. Thank you so much for coming on this evening, MiDian. Is that how you say it? MiDian.
yes, MiDian. Yes.
MiDian. Where is that from, by the way? Where's your name from?
Great. So it actually is biblical.
Okay.
So it's pronounced Midian in the Bible. And so it's in the book of the story of Moses. So when he found out that he was not kin to Pharaoh, he fled to the village of Midian, where he met his wife, and then he transformed his comfort, right, into creating a different, reimagining his comfort. And so with that being said, my mom just capitalized the D, changed the accent, and she came up with MiDian.
Very cool. So it's biblical. Thank you so much, MiDian, and we'll be in touch. I'm like on Abolition like a dog with a bone. So I'm sure we'll be in the same circle soon.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you to your audience. That was very engaging. And yeah, let's keep pushing all of our hope. We've got this. We're going to make it.
Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Well, if you guys do enjoy those conversations.
Lovely.
Yeah. Make sure you go over to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty, despite very suppressed and still growing channel. We also have to make a little announcement. We did pass 110,000 subscribers the other day.
Still no plaque, which I told you I'm never getting a plaque.
Probably never getting a plaque. But what we do have is the love and support of our wonderful audience. Patty Holly, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. That looks like, that's her. That's Janet. Okay.
It's Janice.
Janice, I said that.
You said Janet. Janice Joplin.
I slipped the tongue. I know what I was saying. Janice Joplin. Citizen Pendejo, always a pleasure. Thank you for the 50 pesos. The Axis of Baljanal. Buenos Aires, Mexico City, Miami, New York, Toronto, Brussels, London, Madrid, Paris, Rome, Tel Aviv, Dubai, New Delhi. Pestian PDFs.
He's basically saying Epstein PDFs, Zio hubs. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we get buried for saying the real thing. That's what happens. Yeah. Ramadan Mubarak. Well, I don't know if to you, Justin, but thank you very much.
Ramadan Mubarak to everybody.
Yes, well, to everybody.
Especially to me. And I will say, this is the thing. I am not going to be going to any iftars this year. And as sad as that is, I gained weight. When we were campaigning in 24, and I was going to, I don't know how many iftars, like every night, it seemed during Ramadan, I had somebody was feeding me. But the problem is, and this is what I can't express enough to my Muslim friends, I don't fast during the day. So you're fasting during the day and then eating a feast at night. I'm eating during the day and then eating a feast at night. It's not good for me. So while I am missing out on iftar activities this year, I think that it'll be better for me to not have to buy new pants.
Citizen Bendejo, yes. Citizen Bendejo with the 20 pesos. Access of Baal. I don't know if that's in correction or reference to what you had just written, but thank you very much for the well, I think it's about $2, but thank you very much. Soon Heaven with the $2. Poor CIA effer Carlson, Dr. Shiva for senator. Let me tell you something. How
Soon
about
Heaven, you just
both of your statements? How about both I disagree with? How's that? Thank you for your contribution. Libertarian Social Dem, thank you so much for being a 4-month member. Please interview Rick Shepard, AZAPAC Republican for Nevada 2nd District, and is pro-single payer on his site and pro-environment and libertarian. We are picking and choosing which candidates we bring on. It's not personal. We'll see what happens. I have been informed that apparently James Fishback may be coming on our podcast, so we'll see what happens.
I don't know how I feel about that, but okay.
It'll be an interesting I'll do it on the solo show, but it'll be interesting.
He's a complete misogynist.
Well, that's why I think it'd be better.
As is Dr. Shiva, so that's kind of funny
well,
that they're both.
Well, Dr. Shiva's pretty. Yeah, I don't want you having to deal with that shit.
I am never.
Jim Taleb with the $5. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure, my friend. The Progressive Lefty, member for 11 months. Thank you so much. If you keep growing, you will have to change your slogan. No, revolutionary change is going to stick. I think we're going to stick with that.
No, I think he means small and mighty or something. I don't think he means our. He said slogan, not name. So okay. I think he's talking about when you say we're small and mighty, small but mighty. I think that's what he's talking about.
We're still small but mighty. Do you not see how small the viewership is? Do you not see how this channel gets absolutely buried? Like this channel's buried. Like it's not a
and
joke.
Yet I'm totally content because I remember not that long ago we had less than 50 people and we still did this for 4 or 5 years. So the fact that it's just, yeah.
But again, they wouldn't do this unless our message was resonating.
No, but also Thursday night is hard because there's a lot of competition.
Kate with the $4.99. Thames you so much. Thames. Like Thames. It was Battenberg, then the war. So translated Mountbatten. Thank you very much for that correction. And thank you for your support. Miley's channel gifting the 1 Revolutionary Change membership. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Miley's channel.
Appreciate you doing that. And of course, we thank each and every one of you for your incredible support. And this channel will survive and thrive because of supporters like yourself.
And guys, again, go over to Patreon and feel free, join for free. You know, there's people over there, they're free. And I just want to start creating a community over there. So just go join over on Patreon. It's free just so that we can maintain some of these conversations.
Yeah, and let's get that Substack up. I think things that I write lengthy enough with an attachment of a
Well, Substack is good to put our content out, but I don't think that there's like a feature in terms of like an ongoing chat room. And that's what I'm talking. Right. So guys, go over to Patreon.
We should employ all the tools in the toolbox in order to continue to maintain some semblance of a growth pattern, as well as a consistent number of people being here on a regular basis, which is obviously not easy to do. With that being said, Reverend Jesse Jackson was somebody who obviously had an incredible impact.
Wait. I thought we're ending with that. No?
No.
Okay, because we're going to talk about the Swiss guy, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay, because I have something for that. Okay, go on.
Okay. As I was saying, Reverend Jesse Jackson passed away at the age of 84, I believe. This is a person who I think a lot of people forget that unfortunately got associated way too often with the fake Reverend Al Sharpton, because any type of a pro-liberation Black movement is always going to be met with an immense amount of scrutiny, as it was particularly in the 1980s during the Reagan Revolution. And Reverend Jesse Jackson ran for president twice during the Reagan 80s, in 84 and in 88. And he had an incredible impact when he ran. But perhaps the most impactful component to him running for president of the United States was the fact that he stood firm with the people of Palestine.
Did I tell you I saw him speak when he came to the University of Colorado in 1988?
No, I did not.
I did. I saw him speak live. He came and spoke, and I actually had a really good visual because there were some of us that climbed. We went up onto the roof of one of the buildings, one of the lecture halls, and were able to get like a really good view. But it was amazing. There's no doubt that he's an amazingly good speaker. So I mean, it was really amazing to see him.
This is going to be a layered segment where we're going to start with one of the first clips that brought him to national prominence. This is back in 1979, and he was speaking with the very sophisticated yet extremely neoconservative genocidal maniac William F. Buckley.
Another question. Was that a question you asked me? Another question. Which boundaries does Israel recognize? They understand that there are 4 sets that are talked about. Which boundaries do they recognize?
After 4 months of negotiation, Resolution 242 was voted for by Israel, but has never been sanctioned by the PLO. And for the contents of 242...
Why would you wait for someone you don't recognize to sanction anything?
I love that. Why would you wait for anyone you don't recognize to sanction you?
Well, with all due respect, I'm the white man, you're the colored man, and I have to make the decisions because I know what's best for you and your people.
Oh, Ruby K, I love that Sesame Street clip. Yes, that's a beautiful
Yes,
clip.
that is a great clip of him on Sesame Street. Absolutely.
Yeah. What'd you say?
That was kind of clear, Bill. Why would you wait for someone you don't recognize to sanction anything? The UN, that is respected for its 48 petition boundaries, is disrespected in its appeal to honor the boundaries.
The PLO does not need to be recognized in order to make its declarations. It's been making them since 1964.
But I'm not speaking about the PLO.
Which is
I'm asking,
before anybody recognized them.
Well,
so there's no reason why they can't declare themselves on Resolution 242, which they have failed to do.
If Israel will not recognize the 242 boundaries, and America will not enforce the 242 boundaries, what is the basis for the group that's not taught with to recognize the 242 boundaries?
Well, you were the first person to acknowledge the progress made between Sadat and Israel. That is progress that was made as a result of negotiation under a certain umbrella given by the United States with certain commitments made by the United States. Why isn't the PLO welcoming that kind of reconciliation? Why aren't the Jordanians coming in and welcoming that kind of organization? Why?
This enrages me, but I'm gonna just not, because this is old, so I don't feel the need to go off on this fool.
Okay, but I think it's important here because what Buckley is talking about is the same bullshit that they talk about today when the genocide was being committed.
Correct.
Why doesn't Egypt open up their borders? Why doesn't Jordan open up their borders? Why is this, again, this is 1979.
Same talking points. That's exactly. The Zionists have not come up with new material since 1948. They really need some new material. This is just, he is so disgustingly like a white supremacist piece of shit. Like, I just can't.
You know what the amazing thing is? In the bizarro universe, the alternate reality, ladies and gentlemen, William F. Buckley and Tucker Carlson basically come from the exact same background. They come from the aristocratic class. One person goes one way, and then the other person goes exactly as one who comes up in an upbringing like Tucker Carlson would expect to go down, which is William F. Buckley. That's who these people are, and that's how they think. And in their mind, they truly believe, and again, they don't see it from a position of malice. They see it as a position of benevolence.
Well, no, these are the same type of people that believe in things like eugenics. They truly believe that they're superior.
They do. Well, he intellectually.
He absolutely thinks he's superior to Jesse Jackson.
Well, intellectually, yes, 100%.
In every way.
Why is it that somebody, a Palestinian head who sanctioned and applauded that reconciliation was killed by a PLO terrorist?
Their answer is that that negotiation did not recognize their right to self-determination. But the question I'm asking you, since I'm doing interrogating,
I must finally, I'm not sure who's asking whom the questions here as I've been watching this proceed in both directions.
My point is simple as that is that there are 4 sets of boundaries. There are the 48 boundaries, the 67 boundaries, the biblical boundaries. Which boundaries ought to be honored?
Well, it depends on how frequently you go to war.
That is one of the most disgusting, insufferable, narcissistic, classist responses I have ever heard.
And yet it is completely in line with what we're doing right now when we say we're bringing back, when you see people bringing back the Monroe Doctrine. It's the exact same thing. That is the exact mindset of what we're doing right now. So yeah, we have failed.
Depends on—
We have failed. Here's the thing. It's not even just this country, quite honestly. I mean, we're bad because we have the most weapons right now and we're the bullies of the world right now. So right now it's us. But whatever, it could be whatever empire that it is. We as humans, as a species, have failed. We failed. So at this point, the best we can do is try to mitigate the damage on our way to extinction for the people that are coming after us. Because this experiment, this human thing, yeah, this isn't working. This isn't working. And so my belief is that the actual powers that be, like the universe, the nature and the universe and the cosmos and the earth and all of that, yeah, it's going to be done with us. And we really have that coming because we have just failed as a species. That's what I see we have failed. Big old F. Big old F.
Now, it shouldn't come as any surprise. And one thing we like to do when these types of stories happen, especially anybody who stands for Palestinian liberation, when the Reverend passed 2 days ago, it became pretty clear that there was going to be varying degrees of storytelling coming from different perspectives. And I think it's always important to show what is considered the pro-Israel perspective versus everybody else's perspective that has a brain. So, Colin, could I please have the pro-Israel article?
Are they going to talk about his reference to Hymietown? Because that's one of my favorites.
Times of Israel, Reverend Jesse Jackson, U.S. civil rights icon with rocky ties to Jews, dies at 84. Protege of Martin Luther King Jr., he was standing right next to him when he was assassinated, led Black causes for decades and broke barriers as a presidential candidate. He also had to apologize for referring to New York City as Hymietown.
And here's the thing. I remember when that happened, and I remembered all the people in my vicinity. Again, I grew up in a very insulated Jewish community, were so put off. They were everybody. And so, yeah, we were taught, well, he must be an anti-Semite.
Totally.
And of course, now, in retrospect, not only do I know that's not true, but I also think that that's funny. And quite honestly, whatever neighborhood he was referring to probably is Hymietown. I mean, my family was from Brooklyn Heights. And if somebody were to tell me they called it Hymietown, I'd be like, nah. Like,
they're the only people that are allowed there anyway. So, hey.
Right.
The African-American leader had rocky relations with the American Jewish community for much of his career due to his 1980s friendship with Nation of Islam leader Farrakhan and his description of New York City as Hymietown, for which he later apologized. His support for the Palestinian Liberation Organization also strained the relationship, though it improved over time. Jesse Louis Jackson was born October 8th, 1941 in Greenville, South Carolina, son of a high school student. You mean a high school? Oh, I see. Okay. So now they have to insult the fact of the typical Black child that is born out of wedlock. The son of a high school student, Helen Burns, and Noah Lewis Robinson, a married man who lived next door.
What the hell?
Take the knife in.
Again, I know this wasn't a secret. Clearly, that's public information and probably something that, everyone around him is aware of. But like, really? Really?
Jackson was later adopted by Charles Henry Jackson, who married his mother. Let me tell you something. And you guys know, if you've been watching me for the past several years, I don't buy into everything's racist. I buy into very little is racist. Let me assure you that this paragraph right here, talking about Jesse Jackson, is bona fide racism in its purest form. They're basically saying he's a bastard child who needed to be adopted, and that's it. So now we got that out of the way.
Meanwhile, my understanding, and I saw something within the past day or so about Jackson referencing his birth mother and where he came from. So I think it's something that he was proud of, you know what I mean? In a way that yeah, like this is not a slur, but that's what they're trying to do.
Oh, they're trying to say it as a dig. Yeah, he's just
no, and I don't think, yeah, they could say that if they want to.
Well, Ruby K is right. They don't know how not to be racist because, again, it is a supremacist ideology that Zionist Jews believe in. That's just how they are. Arriving at the historically black College of North Carolina A&T in 1960, just months after students there launched sit-ins at a whites-only diner. Again, they're laying it on thick, baby. Jackson immersed himself in the blossoming civil rights movement.
No, that's not a problem. That actually is good information to know that he went to a school that was active in the civil rights movement, and that's where he got into it. I mean, I don't think that was anything wrong with that particular statement.
By 65, he joined the Voting Rights March with Dr. King, led Selma March, Montgomery, Alabama. King dispatched him to Chicago to launch Operation Breadbasket, a Southern Christian leadership conference effort to pressure companies to hire black workers. Jackson called his time with King a phenomenal 4 years of work. They say he was with King. He was standing next to King on April 4th, 1968, when the civil rights leader was slain at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. Why was he in Memphis, Tennessee? Because he was standing with the labor movement. Yeah, we can't have black and whites of economic plight forming alliances.
Right. MLK at that point was there for the trash collectors.
Correct.
Were on strike, I believe.
Sanitation, baby.
Sanitation workers were on strike.
Keep scrolling, Colin.
Wait, go back. I want to see the picture. Wow. God, look how young. Look at Jesse Jackson.
He was a baby.
Yeah.
With his flair for the dramatic, Jackson wore a turtleneck he said was soaked with King's blood for 2 days, including at a King memorial service held by the Chicago City Council, where he said, "I come here with a heavy heart because of my chest is the stain of blood from Dr. King's head." You know, I'm sure no one really had anything critical to say about Jackie Kennedy walking around with her pink coat on covered in Jack's brains and blood. She said, and I quote, let everyone see what they did. And we all know who they are. However, several King aides, including speechwriter Alfred Duckett, questioned whether Jackson could have gotten King's blood on his clothing. No, again, he was just standing right next to him when it happened, but of course, how could that have happened? There are no images of Jackson in pictures taken shortly after the assassination. Again, this is all digs at him. This is all to, give him.
They're trying to discredit him.
Of course.
They're trying to dishonor the dead.
Well, of course.
It's not working.
No.
It's not working. And I have no delusional admiration of Jesse Jackson. I mean, again, and here's my thing, and why I would have never voted for him. I personally wouldn't vote for someone that has reverend in their title for president. Sure. I wouldn't vote for somebody who had rabbi or imam in their title either, just to be clear. That's just not somebody I want. I don't want a religious figurehead running my country, but it had nothing to do with that. I didn't like Jesse Jackson.
In 1971, Jackson broke with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference to form Operation Push, originally named People United to Save Humanity. The organization, based on Chicago's South Side, declared a sweeping mission from diversifying workforces to registering voters in communities of color nationwide. Jackson ran for president twice and did better than any black politician had before President Obama, winning 13 primaries and caucuses for the Democratic nomination in 1988, 4 years after his first failed attempt. Well, again, nobody was beating Reagan in 84. He also had influence abroad, meeting world leaders and scoring diplomatic victories, including the release of Navy Lieutenant Robert Goodman from Syria in 1984, as well as the 1990 release of more than 700 foreign women and children held after Iraq's invasion of Kuwait.
Yeah.
In 99, he won the freedom of 3 Americans imprisoned by Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic.
He's a great, honestly, an extremely good diplomat.
And this is
that is someone who would have been like a really good Secretary of State.
And you know what? If Bernie had won in 16 or 20, he probably would have had a diplomatic or a substantial post in the cabinet.
Because the truth is that Jesse Jackson was extremely good at this.
Yeah, he was. Infamously called New York City Hymietown, denied and then apologized. In January of 84, in what he thought was private remarks to a journalist, he referred to New York City as Hymietown, a derogatory reference to its large Jewish population. When the remarks were published in the Washington Post, the civil rights leader denied having made them and blamed a Jewish conspiracy for the controversy. He ultimately acknowledged the remarks and apologized in a New Hampshire synagogue. In later years, he attempted to mend the relationship and met with Jewish leaders and organizations.
You know what I find very infuriating about that whole thing, about them going off on him about Hymietown and making such a big deal about that? I would suggest that the vast majority of the people that are creating an issue or created an issue about the Hymietown comment are people that would use the term Browntown or Schwarza every day of the week. You see what I'm saying? So he says Hymietown and an off-color remark, whatever. And that's just, but every single one of those people, I guarantee you, has some sort of phrasing and usage in their history that is extremely derogatory to Black people. I can promise you that. They're bigots. So it's funny that they're focusing on his usage of a derogatory term when that's what
only they're allowed to be bigots, Jen.
They're sitting there behind the seat saying, can you believe what this Schwarza said about us? That's what they're saying.
During his 88 campaign, his support among Jews were far lower than among white people in general, and his electoral chances took a serious hit when in the New York primary, he only won 3% of the Jewish vote. Yeah. There's more to it than just that. His platform advocated secure borders for Israel. About a decade earlier in 1979, he had visited the Jewish state where Prime Minister Menachem Begin refused to arrange any high-level...
Menachem Begin.
Whatever. They're all the same to me. Refused to arrange any high-level meetings. In speeches throughout the trip, Jackson voiced support for the cause of Palestinian statehood, but opposition to acts of terrorism. Jackson did meet, however, with Palestinian Liberation Organization leader Yasser Arafat in Beirut. He continued to speak well of Arafat and met with him again several times in subsequent years, including in the West Bank. Now, let's flip it around and see what a positive article is written about, in this case, Al Jazeera. How Jesse Jackson helped empower U.S. Arabs and lift up the Palestinian cause. Arab American advocates eulogized Jackson as a civil rights giant who embraced their communities and defended Palestine. More than 40 years ago, U.S. civil rights leader Jesse Jackson called on the Democratic Party to open its doors and welcome the desperate, the damned, the disinherited, the disrespected, and the despised. This included Arab Americans and Palestinian rights supporters who have suffered for decades of racism, demonization, and marginalization. Advocates in those communities say that Jackson, who died Tuesday at the age of 84, helped elevate their voices over his decades-long career. I don't think there's a way to tell the Arab Americans' political empowerment story without understanding the path that Reverend Jackson created for us. That was from Maya Berry, Executive Director of the Arab American Institute. In 84, Jackson appointed Arab American activist James Zogby, still writing, he actually gave a great eulogy of Jackson the other day, as one of his deputy campaign managers as he mounted a bid for the presidency. Well, they really did a great. You know what I also would say, Jen, in retrospect, I have a feeling if Jesse Jackson was the nominee in 1984, he would have won more than the state of Minnesota, which is what Walter Mondale won. Just saying. I think he would have done it.
Probably. He would have done infinitely better in the South.
Mm-hmm. Zogby would later found the AAI. Jackson's campaign also actively courted Arab Americans and amplified calls for Palestinian self-determination in an era when unquestioning support for Israel was the default position in U.S. politics. Barry said Jackson always rejected pressure to disassociate from Arab Americans who view Palestine as a focal issue. He understood that the fight for justice was one that had to be done when it was both hard and easy. Our country has lost a giant.
For sure. For sure, he's a legend. Civil rights legend. And you could criticize and say whatever, and it's like people are so all or nothing with everything. And it's so you're going to critique this, that, that. It's like, go do your own accounting. Do your own accounting. Okay, seriously. Take your own inventory. I don't appreciate that, especially when it's just subjective bullshit. You're not saying anything. He didn't do anything that you find so abhorrent. You just didn't like the way he spoke about things. Like that's not a real thing.
And to tie it all together, I believe this is from 1984. Reverend Jackson sat down with Dick Cavett to discuss, I believe, what may have been in part the Hymietown commentary.
Yeah.
The Jews, and about you were sick and tired of hearing about the Holocaust, to say that when we're not sick and tired of hearing about black lynchings in the South and so on, we're still sympathetic, and what incredibly bad timing.
After visiting the Holocaust site, the tour guide asked me how did I feel about it. I said, one has to have a sense of tragedy, and I think it's real tragic. I said, and the phrase that many Jewish people use, never again, really should apply to everybody, because all of us should say never again to fascism, because this is the logical conclusion of fascism. So you say, well, you make it sound as if it's just a humanitarian crisis when it's in fact unique. I said,
and again, that is your
privilege,
your privilege, your supremacy for thinking it is unique. That's the whole thing, is that, yeah.
Oh, I'm the first to always put, and listen, I have always said that Stalin was worse than Hitler. Do you understand that anywhere from 25 to 30 million Russians were killed during World War II? But you don't hear anybody still talking about it today. And that's at least 5 to 6 times more than the amount of Jews that were killed in Europe during the war. But no one wants to talk about it.
And I'm sure that if we could sit here and go over the numbers of Black Africans that were killed in their slavery journey here.
Sure.
Okay. So to talk about a Holocaust or a genocide that as if it is unique is extremely entitled and privileged.
And still today. And do you know why it's talked about today? It's talked about today because it makes money.
Yeah.
It makes money. That's the end of it.
well, as a social scientist, I choose to use the word tragic. He said, but unique. I say tragic. I said, I read Trail of Tears. I know how the Indians were exterminated. 60 million blacks were lost between Africa and America. Other similar situations.
That's what
and so
I'm
he became
saying.
offended because I chose to use the word tragic rather than unique, which reflects a certain hypersensitivity that we must have a new formula in the Middle East that represents more balance in our policy. We must be concerned about Palestinian justice, Lebanon's territorial integrity protected, and normalized ties with the Arab world. That must not be considered offensive.
When quotes like that come out about the Holocaust and so on, who would be out to discredit you so by getting that kind of misquote?
Well,
if it is, as you say, a misquote.
Many Jewish people were insulted and outraged by virtue of the fact that we accepted Arafat's invitation to go to Lebanon. And therefore, there were many who simply attempted to sabotage the trip by trying to discredit us and therefore make our meeting with him an irrelevant trip as opposed to a relevant trip. One of the guys who helped to deal with our ticket arrangements, getting there, a travel agent, he became so irate over the fact that we were going to meet this anathema, this guy called Arafat, and he just simply went in rage and lost all sense of emotional balance. He did a press conference.
I mean, this is a man who worked for you?
No, he did not work for us. See, that was a lie he told. He did not work for us.
When you had your picture taken hugging Arafat, that, of course, offended a lot of people. Strange bedfellows to be hugging a member of the PLO, an organization not unassociated with terrorism.
It's a matter of respect. In that part of the world, one of the common cultural ways of greeting people is with an embrace and a hug on both sides.
He shouldn't even have to be explaining it. And again, we are so much more enlightened now in terms of, at least I am, what is a terrorist organization. So, and Jesse Jackson knew that then. He knew that then, but he was still having to walk that sort of fine line, and people weren't ready to hear it. He knew that then because he knows that he grew up probably in a tradition of Black revolutionaries. So those are people that understand how that works. They understand how that works, that you can't say that, but yeah. And no, there is nothing unique about any particular genocide or Holocaust other than which group of people it is.
I want to remind people that the biggest issue that I had with that Super Bowl ad is not just the fact that they try to continue to portray Jews as victims, which, as you've often said, Jen, Jews are survivors, they're not victims. And not only did they use a Black student as a prop, they tried to essentially compare the two stories, the two pathways in life. And it goes without saying that having to dig in a little deeper on what actually went down at the NBA All-Star game, because
all right, so here's what I'm going to say to you right now. You can choose between that or the Swiss Commentator, but we're getting one more story in.
No, we're going to do both. I'm just not going to take forever.
Okay. Well,
Colin, I have the pick, please. The impact of Spike Lee, again, this is another example of what ends up happening when somebody from a community that is considered lesser than by the Zionist class, but then again, everybody's lesser. It's all about knowing one's place. And everything's fine until you decide to go in a direction that you shouldn't go in, which of course involves you showing up with a free Palestine regalia that the people in question didn't like. The Spike Lee picture, Colin, please. And just grab it from the internet if you have to. I bring this up because I saw the reactions from several of the Zionist scumbags, and several of them, including one in particular who I used to work with, Sid Rosenberg, Craig Carton. These people, for what it's worth, have always been the type of individuals that will always claim that the Jews are victims, that they're in big trouble, and we have to put an end to these types of people. So naturally, they overreact. It's not even a question of overreacted. They reacted as one would expect them to, because they're pro-Zionist animals. They're animals. You, Sid Rosenberg, you, Lizzie Savetsky, you, Craig Carton, you're all animals as far as I'm concerned. You're subhuman animals, and that's how you should be treated, because you think of blacks as animals anyway. So you should be treated exactly as you think others are, because you're nothing. You are no better. And we're going to do this in order of what I think is. Well, actually, I can't really determine which is the worst. So let's start with Craig Carton, Mr. Timu Knockoff of Sid Rosenberg, who liked to tout the fact that this guy, Demi, get his last name, who plays for the Portland Trailblazers, such a wonderful thing that he was making it to the All-Star game as a Jew.
Lee should be banned from every basketball game for the rest of his life. The fact that Spike Lee would protest the fact that an Israeli-born player made it to the All-Star game, the player's not political, the player's just playing basketball.
Player's not political? Have you not heard every fucking word out of his mouth when he was questioned about Israel? People just don't understand. They don't understand anything about Israel or anything that's going on over there. That's not political? And this fuckhead who is Jewish, who thinks his shit don't stink, he made a video the other day lauding the fact that the guy is Jewish and pro-Israel. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds political. Jen, I'll do this solo if you don't want.
Well, I just don't know. I mean, first of all, I thought you covered this. I understand. Like I feel like this is now the third conversation about this NBA game, and I have nothing more to say. I'm glad he wore that. I think he's got enough money that he doesn't give a shit what they're saying about him. And all the other stuff about the NBA, I feel like we've covered. So I don't have anything more to say about it. And it is definitely more for a pontification because you have a lot to say about it.
Okay, fine. If you want to bounce, it's fine. I know it's after 9:30. I want to get this in because there's going to be a shitload more stuff that I'm going to have to cover on Saturday, and I don't want to wait.
Okay. Well, I was gonna do something for that other story, but I was trying to be
okay. So you want me to pull it, and we'll do the other story. Let's do that, and I can come back to this. Do you want to do that?
At this point, just finish the story. Like at this point, you just started it, so just finish the story.
There's no place for this. Politics should not be involved in sports, which is why I don't want to get too involved in it. But the fact that the NBA allowed that to happen, and I'm sure at some level made this Israeli-born player feel a certain way when all he wants to do is play basketball, and now we're making political statements from a fan, not a player. If a player wants to do it, that's a player's prerogative. It's their game, not our game. Right. But for the NBA to open up their doors and front row service to a despicable human being and allow him to make this Israeli-born player feel bad, he shouldn't be allowed in Madison Square Garden. He shouldn't be allowed in another NBA arena for a long time.
You are all a bunch of soft-ass bitches. That's what you are. Every last one of you fucking people who are more loyal to Israel than you are to the United States, you can all get fucked. You're not tough, and you don't know jack shit about what you're talking about. And you're only reacting this way because he decided to wear a Palestine outfit. That's the reason. How about the fact that Noah fucking Tishby showed up courtside at the fucking All-Star game? You think she gives a flying fuck about basketball? No, she's there because that fuckhead is there. And how about the fact that Satan-Yahu Milikowski makes a statement about how you are all of us, Denny. You are all of our people showing up at the All-Star game. This is politics. So who in the fuck are you, Craig Carton? I'll tell you who you are. You're a joke, but you're not nearly as bad as the fuckhead. And I said it, Sid. You are a fuckhead for this. Sid Rosenberg.
Spike Lee shows up to the NBA All-Star game or one of the events. I don't know exactly when he wore it, wearing this pro-Palestine outfit. What a scumbag. I would go to a Knick game now, and I'm not going to encourage any violence, but somebody would probably have to stop me from not running up to Spike Lee and just knocking his ass out.
Oh, I'd like to see you try that. I'd like to see how that would go. Because I'm pretty sure that the Knicks bench will empty on you.
Here's a little history.
That's what I think would happen.
By the way, I can tell you right now, Sid Rosenberg takes performance-enhancing drugs, 1,000%. The other thing I can tell you is that years ago, when he was still working for the Howard Stern Show while he was working at WFAN, he did a segment with Bernard McGurk, who's passed away, and they did a boxing segment. He thought he was a tough guy. He thought he was going to get in the ring, was going to see how tough he was. Bernard McGurk basically knocked him out in about 2 minutes. You remember that one, Sid? Because I remember it, and that was a long time ago, and a lot of people don't remember it, but I do. And he has always been a guy who may be Jewish, but he always acts like an Italian. And by Italian, I mean, he always acts like a mafioso. He gets exclusive access to one of the known front restaurants in New York City, Rouse, in the Bronx. And this guy acts like a man about town, and he's a big maron, and he's going to do this and that, and this and that. And this guy sucks Trump off harder than anybody you could possibly imagine.
Look at his nice lapel pin.
Oh, beautiful. Absolutely. And if you didn't know any better, you would think that it was only Israel because that's what's most important to him. But he's going to go up to Spike Lee. Listen, Sid Rosenberg is no small guy. I know. I know.
It doesn't matter. And Spike Lee is a smaller guy, and he is older, and but it wouldn't matter because Spike Lee is a fixture at Madison Square Garden, a fixture. And that team and those people will not have that shit.
The idea that you would threaten the number one Knick fan, this is the equivalent of you threatening Jack Nicholson at a Laker game. That's basically what this is. And you, with your overinflated sense of self-importance, who can't get a fucking job on a real radio station, you have to go to WOR 710 in New York City and spew conservative bullshit to all of the Long Island psychopaths that live on the North Shore and love Israel. That's your audience. That's who you are talking to.
I thought
You're
this was
out there.
interesting. I thought this was interesting.
Listen, I didn't see it. What did it say? I can't see it because it's blocking the view right.
It
I can't
says,
see it right now.
Peter, on
I
THL,
see.
there was a mention that the Israeli NBA player was the only player with a flag on his jersey. Supposedly no American-born players had the American flag on their jerseys.
Yeah, sure. What else is new?
Right.
That doesn't surprise me. All right, we'll finish this up.
Yeah, I said it. That's right, I said it. Spike Lee is a little bitch. He doesn't like white people. He doesn't like Jews. If you're black, you're cool. You know, if you're Tracy Morgan, you're cool. You're cool.
Oh, my God.
Bigot.
Oh, my God.
Bigot. What in the world? Spike Lee doesn't like Jews? Really? You mean he doesn't like Zios?
Let me assure you, if all Jews are like you, Sid Rosenberg,
You're right, he
I
doesn't.
wouldn't like Jews either.
And he doesn't like white people? I wonder why. I wonder why.
What the fuck
See,
is wrong
again,
with you, man?
this is so infuriating to me because I feel like Black people have empirical evidence and life experience to show them that white people could be unsafe for them, right? Like that's their lived experience. And yet I find infinitely more white people that have issues with Black people, and it is nothing to do with their lived experience. Nothing. What reasonable thing do you like? What is it? The history of the white people being enslaved by the Black people that makes us a little hesitant around them because they destroyed our communities and abused us for so many centuries? I don't know.
How triggered you have to be?
I'm triggered right now.
To say I'm physically going to assault this guy who's half my size, and he should be banned from Madison Square Garden forever.
Good luck with that.
For wearing a Palestinian shirt. And the creme a la creme to tie it all together. And this is why when you are a rich bitch, which Lizzie Savetsky is.
I hate giving her any airtime. I really do. You didn't tell me we were watching this. I don't like giving her airtime. I really don't want to. This bitch does not need to be promoted any further. This has already been shown. It's her shoving the Israeli flag in his mailbox, which is a violation of federal crime because she stuck something in the mailbox. But like, why do we want to give her airtime? Why?
I won't give her airtime. You know.
Seriously, move on to the Swiss guy. I got a thing.
Colin, do we have that picture real quick? Just remember, guys, Spike Lee lives rent-free and always will in your pathetic pea brain skulls. And as you would say, Am Yisrael Chai, as I like to say, just to give you a little bit of a rib, free Palestine from the river to the sea. They will be free and you will be no more, hopefully sooner rather than later. And Ramadan Mubarak, by the way. Credit where credit is due to certain people who have the courage to put themselves in harm's way, knowing full well that if they take chances like this Swiss commentator did at the
Wait, hold on. Before you put it up, I got to get my graphic ready. Hold on a second. All right, go on. I got it. So we very often here talk about small dick energy. Okay. And so I want to be prepared for something else, right? Like this guy is the opposite of small dick energy, right? So let's play the clip. Go ahead, play the clip. I don't understand French, okay? But reading the subtitles is great.
Well, he's on the French side of Switzerland. And that would
Well,
be
the Swiss generally speak French or German.
Right, correct.
Some
Well,
Italian, some Italian.
Yes, but generally speaking, well, that would be west, south, and east.
Yes,
but
I know where they are.
Well, I'm enlightening the audience. God, you're hangry, and so am I. So
I am, and I told you I want to finish this, but I do have a really good graphic to share with everybody when this is over.
You know, the thing that everybody gave this Swiss announcer a shitload of crap about is the fact that he talked about the actual social media postings that this guy put up. This isn't something that he was just musing about on his own. He's actually using his own words against him. That's what he was doing. And they gave him a whole bunch of shit about it to the point in which they got him fired because that's what
okay. And kudos to this guy because he didn't give a shit. Okay, let it finish.
Now, hold on. Now, let me tell you what I love most about this is the fact that he did it for the entire time that he was sledding.
Yes, and you know what we call that, Peter? Do you know what that is?
What's that?
That is celebrating big dick energy. One sequoia at a time. Okay? This is what we're talking. Let me tell you something, okay? And for those of us who need to remember, this is what we're usually dealing with, and this is where we are now. Okay? And I just kudos to this guy for taking a stand, and he is our inaugural member in our celebrating big dick energy story time. So anyway, thoughts?
This is not where the story actually ends.
It's where my story went.
Colin.
No, it's not me, but I have been to the sequoias.
Colin, can you pull up that image, please? One of yes. Okay. So this is the guy in question that the Swiss commentator was referring to. Israeli Olympics flag bearer signed bombs aimed at Gaza. So he's another Josh Shapiro, not to be confused with Ben Shapiro.
That's one. So we're not doing it. We don't have time. So this guy, we would go with this. And then the Swiss commentator, you see what we're dealing with? And for men out there, this really is what we're dealing with in this world. There's really two kinds of people. And as a man, you got to kind of decide which one of those people you want to be. And we see it when you walk in the room. We see you when you walk in the room.
Oh, yeah. And this is the type of uproar that people have. This is who they're defending.
Right.
They're defending this guy they're defending. And you wonder why people hate Jews? Like, are you crazy? This is so easy to see why. And they wear it very proudly. This very smug, entitled class of people. But it's inevitable that they're going to lose, that this is an inevitability. It's not a question of when, or a question of if, it's a question of when, because they will fall. I know that it doesn't seem likely that that's going to happen, but I want to end on a positive note.
You have a positive note? More positive than my Sequoia graphic?
Well, Jen absolutely loves a good Scotsman. And if you have,
I do love a Scotsman.
So this is a Scottish band called Primal Scream. And this was at a Christmas event that apparently didn't get heralded much in the news. And you're going to see why right now that this has been completely suppressed, but I was able to find it. This is an example, again, of what big dick energy actually looks like.
All right, let's see it. We're gonna get flagged for this. Why are you playing this? Don't play that. That's the kind of shit that's gonna get us copyright strike.
Colin, you can always edit out the sound.
I don't know why you tempt fate like in a way that we ought not do.
Scottish rock band.
Yeah, read it.
Scottish rock band Primal Scream was reported to the UK police for anti-Semitism for displaying images of war criminals and the genocide in Gaza during their performance in London. I want to remind you of one clip, one image that I just thought was so telling and so beautiful. Where is it? Where is she? Where is she? There she is. There she is. And you know, there are still people who wish that she was president. We couldn't get Hillary to be president. Oh, that was too fast.
Angry in every color, baby.
All right, so the audio is killed, so let's play the rest of it.
Okay. Now it's just so quiet.
Hey, you told me to turn it off.
Because I don't want to get a copyright strike. I feel like these are the kinds of things that we end up getting trouble for.
Now, if you want to know who the real mastermind is, that's him. And
right now, our foreign policy is being directed by Jared Kushner and Marco Rubio.
100%.
Those are the two people that are in charge of foreign policy. So yeah, it's not good. So I don't see how this is good news.
It's being defiant. It's putting
Yeah,
this up.
okay, it's revolutionary. I will accept that. But I don't. Yeah.
We hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure that you smash that like button.
See, my Irish friend knows. My Irish friend knows that I'm right. Thank you.
I will have a lot to talk about on Saturday.
Oh yeah.
Don't know what those topics will be just yet, but I'm sure those of you that appreciate our channel will tune in. Again, smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. We love you all. We appreciate you all. I will see you Saturday. And free
Palestine. Free Palestine.